as Leader of the Council.
Thank you. The Cabinet has responsibility for managing the books at Medway Council, and the Leader is in charge. So can the Leader of this Labour-run authority set out what specific assurances he had to give to His Majesty's government in order to receive the millions of pounds of exceptional financial support that was necessary in order for him to budget and balance the budget for this year? And will he commit, given that he is only one of 30 principal local authorities after 317 in England to require this exceptional financial support, will he commit now on the record that if he needs exceptional financial support again next year, he will resign?
Thank you very much for your question. I'm sure you've been paying very close attention to overview and scrutiny meetings over the past few years. You'll be well aware that exceptional financial support has a number of safeguards and controls in place. The Chief Operating Officer meets very regularly with very senior officials at MHCLG. I've met with ministers and others to confirm that's the situation. As you will be very well aware, you were, I think, a Conservative councillor at the time when we first brought in SIT for our own request, and they were very clear in their first sentence that the administration previous to us had left Medway Council's finances in a grave situation. So look, we are continuing to work hard. People will absolutely see from the report we see here tonight a phenomenal amount of work in just a few short weeks from where we were to where we are now. Absolutely recognising that. So there are announcements being made, including, interestingly, of course, where we will be putting council tax up by 4.994%. In Worcestershire Council, run by the Reform UK party, they're putting up council tax by 9%. Thank you very much for your question. Let's move on to question C. Councillor George Perfect has given me a personal indication he wouldn't be present tonight, so he'll be receiving a written response. I'm not sure if Councillor Hackwell is here, so he will receive a written response. Similar for Councillor Tijan, which moves us on to question F from Councillor David Wilding. If you want to come and ask your question to my friend and Deputy Leader of the Council, Councillor Theresa Murray.
Good evening. Given the projected, excuse my voice, I've had a cold. Given the projected increase of costs in adult social care of a net 7.629 million in 26-27 and the surmounting pressures of residential nursing care, can the portfolio holder provide evidence and justification that the budget has space for the vanity project that the proposed council-run care home?
Well, I'd like to thank you for your question, Councillor Wilding, but I'm not going to. The situation in terms of evidence, you have been present yourself at the Cabinet in July and later at full council when the rationale for this project was given to everybody and you had an opportunity to comment then. I'm not sure, actually, that I understood the basis of your question. On the one hand, you're reminding us about the overspend, compelling, demand-led, and a legacy from your administration, who sold off all of our care homes and left us in a position where we actually haven't got any opportunity to save people if they're made homeless by a failure in the private sector. And to call the project a vanity project, I found outrageous and disgraceful, actually. It is a project that will save money in the end, that will set a gold standard for social care in Medway, that will work with the market, not against it, will provide safe and good quality accommodation for people with complex dementia and others who need reablement and to move on from hospital. So I think the next time that you ask me a question and call something that is a project for the whole of Medway a vanity project, you need to think very carefully about the phrases that you use.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next question. Actually, I can see Councillor Joy and Councillor Filmer are not
Thank you
here.
for your answer, as I do have manners.
Thank you very much for your thanks to my friend and deputy leader. Let's move on to the public questions. I think the other two councillor questions are not here. Let's move on to Raza Griffiths, who's asking question I, and that's going to be going to Simon Curry. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So I recognise some people. So I actually asked this question 2 years ago, so it'll be interesting to see what's happened since. So my question is, can the council, which has stated its aspiration to develop a modern transport network, detail what practical progress has been made against the timetable for the installation of the new real-time information system as per the bus improvement plan for 25-26, and what remains to be done, in particular regarding Chatham bus stations' information systems?
Thank you. Simon, over to you.
Thank you very much, Raza. It's nice to see you again. The Council has been working to modernise and improve the real-time information system across Medway as part of our bus service improvement plan. We have now completed the detailed procurement and commissioning work required to replace the current outdated and unreliable screens, and this work will be presented to Cabinet in March. We plan to install 34 new RTI screens, including full upgrades at Chatham Waterfront Bus Station, with new summary screens on platforms A and B, and replacement individual screens on platforms C and D. A further 28 new screens are planned for key bus stops across Medway. These new units will provide accurate real-time arrival information, improved 4G connectivity for greater reliability, and integrated CCTV to enhance passenger safety. Once Cabinet approval is secured in March, the remaining steps will include finalising implementation arrangements with our delivery partner and commencing the phased installation programme. Once completed, this programme will significantly improve the passenger experience across Medway and help support a more reliable, attractive bus network for residents. And just to add into that as well, I think the idea of having cameras there as well is really important from a public safety point of view to make people safe and secure, particularly in the evenings and such, like when they're catching buses. And this will lead to improved numbers of journey times, that's what we're looking for. So thank you for your question.
Well, thank you, Councillor. And I can ask a supplementary question.
Short supplementary, indeed.
I'll have a look at that because I didn't quite hear all that. I'm a little bit hard of hearing, but it's great to hear that these things are kind of in the pipeline, and I hope that they will be delivered because it won't be before time. But my supplementary question, actually, Councillor, is would you like to attend there's a community rally on the 21st of February, actually, in the Baptist Church in Crow Lane, and to just tell people, because I think they'd love to hear more about this. So I can give you the details as part of your community liaison, connecting with the likes of me and the people of Medway. So we can talk later. Sorry, thank you very much.
Thanks for the invitation. I'll do my best to come along. If you can send it to me, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Hopefully the buses will get everyone there on time for that meeting. Elizabeth Kebble, if you'd like to come and ask your question, please. Do take a seat. And your question is going to Teresa Murray.
I think it's on. Yes. Hello. Medway's population is continuing to grow, yet many residents already experience long waiting times and severely limited access to mental health support. How is the council planning to ensure the future mental health infrastructure will be sufficient to meet need, and what planning is in place to address the current gaps in demand?
Thank you. Teresa.
Thank you for your question, Elizabeth, and it's a really important one. And I hope that you'll get some comfort and some information from my answer. Commissioning responsibility for mental health treatment services sits with the NHS Integrated Care Board, with services delivered by a range of partners, including Kent and Medway Mental Health Trust, that used to be KMPT. These organisations are held to account by our Health and Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and indeed by us when we meet the senior officers of those organisations. The mental health services and infrastructure extends beyond the NHS services, however, with our adult social care service providing critical support to residents with mental health needs. There's a range of public health and mental wellbeing services. Our Children Partnership Commissioning team also lead and commission a wide range of children and young people mental health services. And actually, we've got a special day for children, children's mental health this Thursday at Lordswood Leisure Centre with lots of schools coming along. We have an excellent local voluntary sector who provide a wide range of infrastructure and support services for Medway residents. We commissioned the Release the Pressure helpline. We've recently increased the capacity of our Men in Sheds project because mental wellbeing is a core component of our workplace health programme support, and we support the setup and running of the 2 safe havens and a newly established crisis house in Medway. A key aspect of planning for future resident needs is through the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment. This year, Medway contributed to a collective Kent and Medway needs assessment for mental health services that considered existing service provision and made recommendations to commissioners and the system partners. In line with the government's 10-year health plan, neighbourhood health will play a key role in improving the health of the population. Mental health is an important consideration, and through our Director of Public Health and the Assistant Director of Adult Social Care, Medway has 2 senior representatives on the Kent and Medway Neighbourhood Health Board, and I'm very hopeful that that will bring all services much closer to people who live in a particular area, and mental health services are included in that.
Thank you. A short supplementary, if you have one.
Very short. One of the safe havens at the Sunlight Centre has opening hours. It's not open until 6:30 p.m. Are there any plans to increase that so that it's 24 hours, the same as the one at Medway Hospital?
We're hoping that we can find funding to continue to increase capacity, although there aren't any guarantees at the moment. The safe haven at Medway Hospital is being redeveloped, so it will be in a much nicer building in the safer area, because I realise that when you go into the safe haven, it's a nice welcoming space, but actually outside it looks a bit hostile, doesn't it? So I'm very pleased that the hospital have found some money to make that a more comfortable space. And I think associated with the safe havens, our mental health cafes and other means of support are there through the other hours of the day. But I take your point and we'll definitely look into that.
Thank you very much for that question. Let's move on. We've got just over 6 minutes left. So John Castle, your question, and that's going to be asked, or answered, I should say, by Simon. John, you're very welcome. Oh, need to press your microphone on.
Is that better?
Better, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Over the holiday period of this year, no brown bin collection occurred from the 22nd of December to the 12th of January, a total of 3 weeks. Appreciate there's likely good reasons why this wasn't possible. However, this is a long period of time, and it's also a period where food waste could be higher than normal for many residents. I noticed that many residents where I live put out brown bins every week in the expectation of a collection. Can the council commit to shortening the period without brown bin collection in the future?
Simon, over to you for an answer.
Thank you very much for your question, and it's a really important one, actually. The review of Christmas waste services we do every year to try and make improvements, and certainly I think this is one of the best years. The volume of waste that we collect over Christmas is about 50% higher than it is at other weeks of the year, if you like. And so it's a significant amount and a massive drain on the normal resources for the council. So hence the need to make changes and do a different collection regime over the Christmas period. However, I can absolutely guarantee that we review every year how that works and what that works. And I put brown bins on the list as well, based upon that question. So yes, I can say that we will be certainly reviewing that and looking at how we can shorten that period.
John, do you have a short supplementary you'd like to ask?
Yeah, I believe that from April of this year, there will be mandatory recycling for flats across Medway, and this will only increase the situation. I think this is a good thing because it will increase the overall volume of recycling in Medway, but it could also mean that there's even more brown bin collections over the holiday period.
Simon?
Absolutely right, and we have got detailed plans in place to introduce that new collection regime as and when it happens later, towards the springtime. That's part of our things, and we have a wider waste management strategy underway at the moment as well, where we're looking at how we can boost our recycling levels significantly over the next couple of years as well. So that's all of a piece, but certainly I agree entirely with you on the recycling of brown waste, definitely.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And then I think this is going to be our last question tonight. So we'll take Milo O'Connor. If you want to ask your question again, that's going to go to the Deputy Leader, Theresa Murray.
Good evening, everyone. So my question is, with evidence showing that pressures on GP appointment systems contribute to late diagnosis of cancer, what specific measures is Medway Council implementing to help GPs in Medway spot cancer earlier so it doesn't go to a late stage diagnosis?
Thank you for your question, Milo, and it's another really important one. And your question accords with the government's latest pledge to make sure that 4 out of 5 cancer sufferers survive more than 5 years. So there's lots of work going on. In Medway, we're not directly responsible at the council for this area. Our public health team, though, is working with the health system to improve cancer diagnosis and outcomes for our residents in several ways. Firstly, they analyse data on and promote cancer screening locally. Screening is important as it provides an evidence-based way to diagnose cancer early and improve survival rates. For example, Medway's public health team has recently analysed data on bowel cancer screening, revealing that uptake is lower among people living in the more deprived areas of Medway and in the younger part of the eligible group aged 50 to 56. The team are working with GPs to identify and overcome barriers to this simple screening, particularly relating to health literacy. Secondly, our public health team works with the Integrated Care Board, our commissioners, to help identify inequalities and areas for improvement in the healthcare services provided in Medway, which includes cancer pathways. As part of the National Plan for England announced last week, there'll be opportunities for new initiatives to reduce inequalities in cancer screening, diagnosis and outcomes in Medway through the Health and Wellbeing Board, which I chair. These will include work to improve knowledge and awareness of cancer symptoms so residents can attend their GP at the right time. And when you get your written answer, we've got lots of statistics and links for you so you can have a look at further information.
Thank you very much.
Milo, do you have a short supplementary?
Just a very quick supplementary question. So studies from the British Medical Journal suggest that triage-based appointments can hinder like reciprocal relationships with GPs and like a therapeutic relationship, and this can weaken the ability to spot cancer diagnosis. Is there anything that's like specific in that area, optimizing the triage-based appointments so it can facilitate a quicker diagnosis in the plans at the moment?
Thank you. Theresa.
One of the things that we do at the Health and Wellbeing Board is hear from the ICB commissioners who are responsible for GP services, and I'll certainly ask them if they think there's any problems with a triage-based diagnosis. I haven't heard myself that there's conflict with that, but if that's your experience and you've read some information about it, I'll be really pleased to pick that up.
Yeah, just very quickly, I'm going to wrap it up very quickly. But yeah, I do know people who have had trouble and have greatly suffered from that. So it'd be really good if that could be checked out. But yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do send that information through. I know Theresa will be happy to receive that.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Councillor Llewellyn-Prenter, or Llewellyn as I like to call you, please.
Thank you, Vince. I just got a point of clarification. So I know the questions are time out and Councillor Finch is not here in the room, but he has asked about a previous update I'd given. So I just wanted to sort of address that and thank him for highlighting actually some extra funding we have received from our Labour government concerning supporting our homeless community. So I just wanted to highlight that this additional funding we've received for homelessness has been split into two amounts. It's over £500,000, and we've got 425,534 for homelessness and rough sleeping, and 107,964 for improving the experience in temporary accommodation for children. So this covers the last 2 quarters of the financial year, and several of these projects will continue into 26-27. I've got a full detailed list that I will ask to be given to Councillor Finch, but I do want to thank him for highlighting the additional funds received from our Labour government.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much. And we'll make sure that list is part of the minutes as well, if that's okay. That would be helpful. Thank you. That concludes the questions. We're 2 minutes over, but that was a helpful additional intervention. Thank you. Let's move on to the agenda tonight, which is, of course, over 1,100 pages long, but some really important stuff in there. And we start with something which is one of the most important things we ever talk about as a council, and that's suicide and self-harm prevention. I'm really pleased to hand over to Teresa to you to move this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. And I want to thank everybody who's been involved in the production of this strategy, which is a really good example, actually, of collaborative work between colleagues in Medway and colleagues in Kent. And it's taken place over a long period of time with lots of lived experience from families who have had people in their families, amongst their friends, take their own lives. One of the things about suicide prevention is that we never know how many suicides we've prevented, because those people who may have felt despairing but did not take that final, last and fatal step actually are saved, but we don't know that they are because they didn't have to do that. And one of the things about the suicide prevention family is that it works right across the voluntary sector and the NHS family. And when we had the conference, and I was talking there, it made me think about what it's like to be part of the suicide prevention family. Like any family, all of us involved in that are knocked sideways when we hear that someone has taken their own life. The tragedy of the things that they will miss, the tragedy of the fact that they were despairing and weren't able to seek all of the help that is there available to them, really comes across when you see everybody assembled in the room and when you hear witness statements from people who've had experience of feeling suicidal and, of course, experience of loss. So the strategy is designed to make sure that all of the systems work together and that there are easy access points for people who feel despairing, and high recognition amongst practitioners of the signs that somebody is feeling that they might be in that terrible situation. And I think here in Medway, one of the things that we were able to do that came as part of the suicide prevention strategy was to have the baton of hope in Kent and Medway. Back in September, there will be lots of people in this room who joined me and others on the walk, carrying the baton, a baton that was made from an idea of 2 fathers who lost their sons and has actually grown into a huge movement across the country. And when I was on that walk and the baton was passed from family to family, who wanted to remember the people that they'd lost to suicide, I was extremely moved because I spoke to an elderly couple who'd lost their son many years ago, and their rawness, their loss, was as prescient and as painful as a couple who'd lost a young brother, actually, in his 20s and had brought the baby that they'd had and named after him with him on the walk. And actually, when we were on the walk, people joined us. People saw what it was about and they joined us. So suicide is something that affects our whole community, and unfortunately, rates are rising. So the tragedy of wasted lives is very much in the minds of the suicide prevention family. I'm very hopeful that this strategy will work, that it's already working, that it's already making people feel that they have got help when they're despairing. And one of the things that we've said that we would like to do, actually, is commemorate the fact that the baton came to Medway every September on the day that it came, so that we take that opportunity to still hold those people in our hearts and minds and remind ourselves of the work that we need to do. So I do commend this strategy to you. It is, as I say, a really good example of collaborative work. It is based on strong data and ideas from practitioners who have worked across this very difficult area of clinical and social work that we do in Kent and Medway. And I'm hopeful always that it will do what it says on the tin and prevent people from taking their own lives.
Thank you very much indeed, Teresa. Nina, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Teresa, and of course to Dr. Whiting and Sophie, as well as everyone who have collaborated to develop this strategy on one of the most critical public health issues of our time, because it does carry such profound significance, not just to individuals, but their families, friends, and of course our communities. Indeed, mental health should be treated with the same urgency as physical health, and this should be reflected in funding and prioritization of coordinated support services. Every life lost to suicide represents an irreversible tragedy. We do need to work together to ensure that there are timely and effective mental health infrastructure prevention efforts, crisis services, safety nets, and awareness campaigns, so that our community members and their families are aware of the support and feel comfortable about accessing advice and support when they need it without fear of stigma or judgment. Our determination should also extend not just to timely and compassionate and appropriate support, but also emphasis on coordinated aftercare follow-ups. Through working together, if we're able to reach out to community members in crisis and cascade the important message that every life is valuable, that there is hope, there will be a better tomorrow, and there is support available, then every life saved will represent a valuable individual story that continues, relationships that endure, and reaffirm our shared humanity, compassion, and commitment in action. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Nina. Any other colleague? Before I come back to you, Teresa, I just want to say I think this is a really great example, actually, of the two public health teams working collaboratively for the whole of the 1.9 million residents. It's a subject which in the last few years, I think, has been spoken about more openly, which is a good thing. And I think absolutely for us as a community in particular, it was a privilege and an honour to start the Kent and Medway Baton of Hope Day right here in Medway, just round the corner actually with our friends at Mid-Kent College. And you can see some of the statistics, particularly in questions raised by both the Health and Wellbeing Board, but also overview and scrutiny, two sets of very sensible questions, which I think have helped add value further to that. So, of course, we want to get to a situation where that figure is zero, but anything we can do to reduce the number from where we are today is a powerful thing. And the collaborative approach, the one Medway approach when tackling some of these issues, from the voluntary sector to some key institutions like Network Rail and Southeastern, recognising specifically some of the challenges there, alongside friends like the Samaritans and others, everybody working collaboratively to send those positive messages out at a time when for some people there is no hope. We've got to say collectively as a community and as a society, there is always hope. There is always an ear to hear. And this strategy, alongside lots of other really important things within it, does just that. And I want to thank you personally, Teresa, for your leadership in this area, not just on that day of Baton of Hope, but throughout the year. This takes strong political leadership, and you have shown that in huge amounts when it comes to this issue being on the agenda. Back to you.
Thank you, Vince and Nina, for those warm and passionate words, because they're important. And I think, Nina, what you said about showing that we value people is absolutely a part of this. You know, it isn't just about giving people hope that things can change, but it is also very much about showing one another, showing people that we know are despairing or in crisis, that we value them, that we want them to live a good and fulfilling life, and we're prepared to support them to do so. And I think, Vince, what you said about the organisations that actually perhaps people wouldn't immediately think of being part of this, like Network Rail, who very sadly have to deal with suicide every day, like those who police our river for us because water-based suicide has risen, the Coast Guard, people in the Pentagon Centre, actually, who we recognised in our Making a Difference Awards for the work they do when they find people despairing and trying to get to the top of the building. So actually, in that suicide prevention family that I was talking about, there are all kinds of people who don't necessarily get the recognition that they deserve for the contribution that they make to preventing people from despairing and actually saving lives. So I think the strategy encapsulates that. I'm very grateful to everybody who took part in the consultation because there was a level of honesty and frankness in some of those responses that helped to direct the way the strategy was written about a painful subject in a difficult situation. And I will continue to be hopeful and determined that we can reduce the rates of suicide in Medway. We can make everybody who feels like taking their own life feel that they shouldn't, because we value them and we want them to live.
Thank you very much indeed, Teresa. Are the recommendations agreed? Thank you very much. Let's move on to item 6, the river strategy, something which we've been looking forward to coming through to Cabinet. Simon, I'm really pleased to hand over to you.
Thanks very much, Vince. And as you say, this has been something that's been long in production and much wanted for many, many years. And I'm delighted that we've now got to this place where we can present this to colleagues. And it's a huge thanks to the team of staff in Regen for getting this as to this point. A massive amount of work's gone in to get us to where we are. This strategy sits alongside our One Council Medway plan, our local plan, the Climate Change Action Plan, and many other plans and strategies that we have across our whole culture and of course, within our community as well. And it's based upon the 3 principles of sustainable development and sustainability, the economy, a sustainable environment, and a sustainable community. We've named it, as we should, after our river, which we are named after the same river. And this has been flowing through our community for the last 10,000 years, since the last ice age. And will continue to carry on flowing long after Medway Council has finally gone in the next few years. So this strategy isn't about the local authority. This is much more than that. It's about our community, our landscape, and the environment where we live. I think it's really summed up quite neatly in the report, paragraph 4.2, the River Medway is fundamentally about our history and our heritage, and it's synonymous with the evolution of the place and its communities, with its use changing significantly over generations, and that change is still underway. And there are 5 key themes within the strategy, covering all the aspects of how we use the river and how we live with the river and how its economy works and its environment. Environment and habitats, leisure and sport, tourism, heritage and culture, development and planning, economy and business. That touches on all the work of this council in different ways. And we know, for example, I think about 1,500 people live on the river in boats at various points. So that community themselves needs recognition, support and care. Medway does not, however, and should not have authority over the river. Our job is an enabling role to get the interests and the cultural, economic and environmental interests and to give all those a voice through all the people who work on the river. And this is about a partnership between all the organisations there. And as part of the delivery of this river strategy, as you'll see from the report, we're planning on setting up the sort of maximising the potential of the river through a stakeholder board that we're going to be setting up, the River Medway Partnership Group. And under that, a number of working groups will be set up based upon the themes that I mentioned earlier around how those are delivered. And we'll be inviting the whole community to participate in the delivery of this strategy. And we will be the facilitators, but the delivery will happen as a partnership with the community. So those 5 themes will be taken forward. But at the heart of this is always resourcing. How do we resource something like this? Well, I'm glad to say that we've managed to find the resource. Thanks very much indeed to the hard work of our financial managers for the council. We are able to fund this through our capital receipts programme. So we're looking tonight to get that support from colleagues as well to bring forward the financial support that this strategy needs. And that's about the first phase. I mentioned about this as a partnership. We need over the next 2 years that financial support to get this up and running. But once the partnership is in place, which will come through in year 1 of the delivery, then we can look to how we fund it for the future and fund all the parts of it going forward in the future in different ways. So that's the sort of bones of the strategy itself. And there is something else at the heart of this as well, which I want to sort of draw colleagues' attention to, and that's about energy. So we have a serious energy crisis in the world, if you like, in terms of fossil fuels are a thing of the past now. They're done and dusted, really, apart from the last vestiges of them still being needed to run our current economies. We know, and so do most sort of major powers across the world, that we're moving to a much more sustainable energy economy for the future, based around solar power, wave, wind, and such like. And that's where we're taking this now. We want to do that in Medway, and we've signed the declaration that the government asked us to just before Christmas around energy. And that even was presented with Medway's plans on our district energy networks at the New York Climate Week. So we are now on the global map for what we're trying to do here in Medway. And one of those energy networks is based around the river. There is enough energy in the river in order to provide a heat network for the centre of Chatham, and we want to take that forward. But in order to do that, the strategy is needed to be a part of that process of taking it forward and the resourcing. So we've got a lot of work to be done on how we take this forward, but it's very exciting time for us as we take this through. I'll stop there for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Simon. I've got Harinder, then Teresa, then Alex. Harinder.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Simon. I have to say I do disagree with Simon. I fully expect us to take control of the river, and for Vince to be on a bridge with a stick and taking a toll for everyone who wants to pass. But joking aside, that's hard for me to do. But I have lost count the number of times people will mention a river strategy or even why can we not do this with the river? Can we make use of the river? And that was with my previous role in heritage, culture and leisure, but also it hasn't really changed because businesses mention it again and again and again. And every time there was an investigation into, well, could we do this? Could we do that? There was always some niggling issue which meant that we couldn't. And it just felt like things were not joined up in a way to make it happen. There was something where the infrastructure wasn't there, and Simon rightly saw that there was a need for a river strategy to make it happen. And it also reminded me of I had a phone call once from my previous boss who wanted to know for boundary related issues whether Medway considered itself as a coastal area. And I had to think, I was like, no, not really. No, it doesn't. Even though it is very much on the coast. And then actually it occurred to me, you could probably say that about Gravesham as well. You could also say that about Sittingbourne, the rest of Swale, that there is a part of North Kent that is industrialised in a way where the geography abutted itself against the river to allow industry to come in through the river, but not really grow in a way to work harmoniously with the river in the way that you'd expect coastal regions to work with the coast. So it's very odd in the way that it grew out sort of 100, 200 years ago. But I think looking at especially in the sections talking about the economy and businesses, this could potentially be the change this could potentially be the biggest impact that this administration could have, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years from the future. So if we were to look back, this could be that impactful, it could be that important. So I fully support this, and I think it covers all the areas that it covers are exactly the right areas that we need to progress. And for me, I'm really excited to see how businesses can engage with this, and looking forward to progressing it. But it's really important to say that this needs to be resourced. So whether it's us or whichever administration comes next, and I hope that's us, needs to take this seriously, because this is for the long term. And well done for the officers, and well done, Simon, for actually taking that on board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just for clarity, before I come to Alex and Teresa, I think the mayor of Medway may have something to say about who's in charge of the river, technically, from a civic perspective, if nothing less. I'll take Teresa, then Alex.
Yeah, thank you, Simon, and thank you for your leadership on this, because Harinder is absolutely right. It's been needed for a long time, and we've had countless attempts that faltered. And I really like your reminder about how long the river's been here and the way that it defines Medway itself and all of us who live here. And Harinder, how important it's been right along North Kent as a determinant of industry and things moving towards the river because it's there. And can make a difference. And I think that one of the other really positive things about the strategy is that it looks to the past, it looks at now, and it looks at the future. And it invites all of the development that we've got along the river, much of it named after the river, much of it positioned because the river is there and that's attractive to people. The plans that some of the new developments have got for making the river more accessible with riverside walks and places to enjoy. This strategy brings all of that together and promises to afford protection to the life of the river, the life within it, the habitats around it. So it actually is an all-encompassing strategy. And I think I also give my thanks to officers who brought this together. I'm very pleased that we've been able to find a way to fund it properly and to bring those partnerships into fruition as soon as we can.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Alex, please.
Thanks, Vin. So I'm just thinking about this and reflecting on the fact that through my life I have made it a rule to only live in great river cities, whether that's Glasgow, London or Rochester. And I think that the value that each of those places derives from its river is an example to us, but also in the case of Glasgow, an example of perhaps how not to do it. I think that by comparison to the River Clyde, the Medway is quite alive with activity already. It's not a wasteland, a post-industrial wasteland of any sort. And from the edge of my ward upstream to the furthest extent downstream, there's a host of activity already taking place. And I think that's important to remember, that this is not starting from a standing start on the Medway. This is building on centuries of millennia of history, as you say, but also decades of regeneration work that has been undertaken since some of the blows which this area has suffered. And I think that when you look at what is already happening, it shows that we didn't need to wait for a strategy to start to act. And that's, I pay tribute to Adam Taylor, the River Projects Manager, who has been a force of nature on matters around the river, certainly relating to my ward as a riparian councillor. And I think that the culmination of that before tonight was the arrival in September of the paddle steamer Waverley, the last seagoing paddle steamer in the world, a Clyde-built seagoing paddle steamer arriving on the Medway. And, I think quite an emotional moment for me to sort of join together two places that are very important to me. But it was really important to the people of Medway to show ourselves off as that riparian place, that place that connects with the rest of the world, that is not a little Englander haven. It's actually an outward-looking place that welcomes that influence from around the country, from overseas, and that was fantastic to see. So I was really privileged to be on that voyage. I think that underlines the wider transport potential as well as the tourism potential for the river, for the River Medway. I'm just back from a short break in Venice, where the mode of transport is by default on the water, and that seems odd to think about catching what is effectively a water bus until you're there, and it's absolutely normal. There's nothing strange about it, and actually to walk those car-free streets, those Deliveroo bike-free streets, was actually quite a joy. So to use the potential of the river to accept that in terms of our road network, we really are at a tipping point in terms of the pressures that are there, and to look outside that, I think, is really valuable, and to have a strategy to work around to do that is really useful. Just also to pay tribute to some of the other things that have continued to happen before this strategy, and I think will only continue to increase in their frequency. The shore litter picks, the creek litter picks that are organised by the Medway Swale Estuary Partnership. I've been on a few of those that give you a unique perspective on the Rochester Riverside development, and again, just also underline not just the good that waterways can do for us as human beings, but the damage that we can do to our waterways as well. The amount of discarded plastics and litter and completely avoidable waste that's picked up from the river. So, you know, I think it's important to remember, particularly after the last item talking about suicide prevention, that actually the value that green and blue spaces have for our well-being. It's documented that in terms of mental health, getting outside is a good start. That's a good way to try to boost your mood. It's not a panacea, but if you want to really amplify the good that getting outdoors gives you, further studies show you that then just add water and you amplify that benefit. So we're really lucky in Medway. It was, as I say, a key reason why I chose to live here decades ago, because I think that open aspect, that connection with the outside world is psychological and spiritual and important. And I think that we have a really fantastic asset on our doorstep, which we can also exploit for economic purposes. You only have to look at full disclosure. I work in my day job for the Canal and River Trust, which looks after 2,000 miles of inland waterways across England and Wales. And the ability to use those waterways, those man-made features of 250 years ago, to drive economic growth now through cooling data centres, through small-scale hydro projects, through water-sourced heat pumps for housing developments next to them. The potential is absolutely incredible, and it would be remiss of us as a local authority not to absolutely tap into that, if you'll pardon the pun, and really grasp that opportunity. So I'm really grateful to Simon for the enthusiasm he's shown for this. I think some of the things we do happen anyway, and I'm pretty clear that this is something that genuinely would not have got to this stage without the drive of people like Adam Taylor and of Councillor Simon Curry. So I'm really pleased to support the recommendations tonight.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex. And just for full transparency, your professional day job doesn't operate in Medway, just for absolute clarity.
That's correct. We have no assets south of the Thames.
Thank you very much. Nina, please.
Thank you. I'm totally in agreement with all the contributions from Cabinet colleagues on this, but it does take immense courage and leadership to actually drive something like this forward. And I really do give credit to Simon for his immense leadership as well as commitment to making this happen. And also, of course, to Adam and Janet for developing the River Medway strategy, who I've met, and I can confirm that they're equally committed and have so much knowledge and insight about what this will mean for Medway in terms of unlocking the significant potential that we still hold. I'd also like to thank the officers for highlighting within the strategy about how it creates opportunities for culture, arts, heritage communities, and of course you mentioned the transport as well, and also the health and well-being initiatives and leisure and sports initiatives that can be brought together through an integrated approach. I really feel that there is significant potential to do that here in Medway, and Herinda's absolutely spot on. The number of culture, heritage-related partners that we meet who've been saying, like, this has been long overdue. They are overjoyed that, this is finally coming to the Cabinet, and hopefully will go forward as well. And I also welcome opportunities for us to explore events that are of national or international significance as well, focused on or around the river Medway, and a definite yes to a story for Medway that incorporates the river, its role and its importance as the lifeblood of Medway area. This narrative should also be embodied into the stories of our area's rich maritime and naval history and shoreside heritage assets along the river, incorporating stories of our town, settlements, and communities, and of course, about what we can offer as well. So thank you very much, and I would fully agree with the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. Before I go back to Simon, this is something which has been 2 decades in the making. The fact that a council, in part named after a river, we're named after the community as well, but we're certainly the river has the same name as this administrative area. The fact we haven't had a strategy for it is kind of mind-blowing in one sense, but we've got on with it. But at a pace which has made sure that we've got the right people around the table, the right conversations happening. And yeah, the river is critical for so many things, as colleagues around the table has said. One thing I want to say, frankly, is the last quiz night I went to, the river made sure that I won, because one of the answers in a quiz recently was Limehouse Landing, which of course is a fantastic new facility that was opened in the summer and I know has been well used, and absolutely brilliant to see that happening. And I'm really pleased. You know, I don't often want to see loads of individual officers mentioned, but Adam Taylor, we can't not mention him when we're looking at this strategy. His determination is probably second only to Simon's. So we're lucky to have individuals working together, officers and elected members, and the wider community, many of whom have said, we're really pleased to bringing this forward. We want to be part of the next conversation. This is a start, not a finish. So from that perspective, really, really pleased to support this. And I want to, again, give my personal thanks to you, Simon, your drive and determination to get this done, but also the conversations we've had around funding. And again, I'd want to place on record, as I will be a lot tonight, thanks to the finance team, in particular our Chief Operating Officer, for finding creative solutions to making sure we can find the key challenges that we have with the river and put the solutions in place. Simon, back to you.
Thanks very much, Vincent. Thank you, colleagues, for your kind words. And I would always, as you know, say this is a team effort to create this. Adam, as you mentioned, has made a massive contribution along with Anne and Janet, obviously, and Sunny and the rest of that team. And I really appreciate the work that's gone in from all of them to get to this stage where we are. It's easy to wax lyrical about the river in many respects. It's a beautiful place. It looks lovely in all sorts of different weathers. It's a wildlife corridor, species moving up and down it all the time. I've seen a dolphin swimming up the river once. I'd love to see that more often. I'd love to see seals basking on the mudflats and when the tide's out, which is only up the coast from here, is already happening. They will come if there's fish, but we need to clean the water up. If the water's not clean, there'll be no fish and you won't get the seals. It's that kind of world that we live in from an environmental point of view that we really need to get this sorted. And that's part of this strategy going forward in partnership with the Environment Agency and all the other organisations that are responsible for that. It's also the economic value of the river. It's a transport corridor, boats moving up and down there all the time. A company like Scotland relies on it completely for their business, for the Medway City Estate. It's fundamental. And they want to expand and grow. Other companies like Jetstream, who've been run the boats last summer, they want to expand and grow as well. The opportunity to utilise those river services. Wouldn't it be great if you worked at Kingsnorth and you didn't have to drive around and up Four Elms Hill, but you could get on a bus at Chatham or at Rochester and cross over the river in 10 minutes to get to Kingsnorth on a boat? That can come, that will come, and that's in here. That kind of approach is what we're after. But also, again, I keep talking about partnership. It is a partnership between a lot of organisations who already exist on the river, and we want to bring them into this partnership and talk with them. And we already started that in the consultation for this. But it's also a partnership with our neighbours. I've spoken to Maidstone Council about this and to other authorities down the river as well, because the river isn't just in Medway. It flows through the middle of Kent and dividing the county in two, really. And if you're on one side, you're a man of Kent, and if you're on the other side, I can't remember what it is, whatever it is, but that's the kind of role that it's always played. So it's really important. And the Friends of the River Medway, who came last year to us, and we had a lovely celebration with them. I've spoken to them already. They're coming back this summer, and we want to expand their organisation into Medway and have a Friends of the River Medway group here in Medway as well. So all that is coming together as a partnership approach within this strategy. So thank you for your support and for kind words, and I recommend it to you all.
Thank you very much. Are the recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. The next 12 items sit with me, just to strap in, everybody. First one is the Council Tax Reduction Scheme 26-27. I'll move the recommendations as laid out in the report. This is predominantly a technical report that we need to bring every year to ultimately to full council, but it comes here first to recommend to full council. This is around, obviously, the changes that were made by the previous, actually it was a coalition government who made these changes, around council tax, localising support for that and reduction schemes accordingly. The key thing I'd want to highlight to colleagues this evening, it's fairly business as usual, so we'll be looking to recommend to full council option 2, and the reason we're doing that in particular is the fantastic news that the Labour government is abolishing the 2-child limit benefit cap, taking thousands of Medway children out of poverty. I don't want to see a single child in Medway in poverty, and anything we can do to support that as a local council and supporting our government is to be welcomed. That has an indirect impact potentially on some of the income bands here. So option 2 recognises that, and of course, as we'll talk about later on, some of the additional support that will be available in the next financial year through the Crisis and Resilience Fund and the Exceptional Hardship Scheme for those who are in that difficult place. So again, lots of technical detail in there. If colleagues have got any questions, happy to take them. But the scheme is predominantly staying as is, but it's having that inflationary uplift, in part recognising the changes to the 2-child benefit cap. Happy to throw it open to colleagues. If not, happy to support the recommendations that will go forward to full council.
Agreed.
Thank you. Let's then move on to the next item, which is on. Sorry, I've got 4 tabs open, and the Wi-Fi is running slightly slowly. Yeah, we're moving to page number 415. Thank goodness.
415.
There we go. So 415, and this is looking at the issue of corporate debt and council tax discretionary policies. And this is in part following on from the last conversation, but in part recognising that we want to ensure, council tax is a critical system for us, really important. Of course, funds a big chunk of that £1.35 million we spend every single day on adult services, children's services and strategic housing, including temporary accommodation. You'll hear more about that later on. So, of course, it's important that we bring in the council tax which is due, but of course, recognising that there will be some individuals and families where there are financial challenges and difficulties. So we're now bringing forward for the first time the Medway Council Vulnerability and Financial Difficult Policy specifically around this area. And I want to thank both Karen and Gemma, who've done a lot of great work on this. Again, new for this council, but again, I think showing that balance between expecting people to pay, expecting people to follow the rules, but equally ensuring that we take a compassionate approach to those households and individuals where their circumstances mean that that is more challenging, sometimes in a short-term period, sometimes in a slightly longer-term period, and the policy deals with that. So I want to thank officers who have created that in particular. Like I say, we've always been very, very clear that there's an expectation that council tax is paid, and it pays for, say, all of the services which residents value and enjoy. Happy to take any questions or comments from colleagues. Simon, please.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to reflect upon that, the vulnerability and financial difficulty part of this report. I think, yeah, I mean, you already mentioned a couple of things, but within my particular ward in Luton, which has got some very difficult situation for a lot of people, looking at their circumstances, understanding where they're coming from, and then showing the compassion and understanding to really say that we care about you, we want to help you, we still have to deliver our services, but we understand where you might find it difficult to be paying. And that kind of approach, I think, shows the compassion and understanding that is kind of a marker of how this administration has been working over the last couple of years. So I just want to stress how important that is, particularly for the people in my own ward. Thank you.
No, that's very important. Thank you, Simon. Looking for any other colleague? No. Thank you. I think the final thing I'd say before we put this to the vote is around the standardisation. So rest assured, at the moment, if someone is in financial difficulty, this council will be looking to support them. This standardises that across the board and takes a one Medway approach in ensuring that there's a consistent message when it comes to that, depending on whichever part of the council you are talking to, and indeed in some cases where the debt is held. So are colleagues happy to agree the new policy for implementation in 2026, April the 1st? Thank you. Then let's move on to Treasury Management Report Quarter 3, and I draw colleagues' attention both for this item and the next item. The feedback from the Audit Committee is on the supplementary agenda. I'll move first, if I can get this technology to work, blimey. Who's in charge of this, please? There we go. I say, move the recommendations as laid out in the report, noting the comments from the Audit Committee as well. Again, quite a lot of technical information in here. Worth saying, and I really welcome this, the conversation that Audit Committee had around one of our investment funds. Colleagues will recall we've had a lot of conversation about the Lothbury Fund, and I think we're coming to the conclusion of that process. You know, that was actually ceased back in May 24, but there's obviously been ongoing processes to round that off. One of our other investment funds, the Patricia Fund, there's been some conversation around that. The current thinking is that will continue to be given an overview to determine what happens with mergers, etc. That's ongoing. But we, of course, have got our team looking at that very closely. And again, we've got a small but perfectly formed team who deal with this particular area of investment. In the grand scheme of Medway's council's funding, it's not a huge amount of money, but of course, every pound is important to us as an administration and to the taxpayers of Medway. So happy to, and there was some good conversation about that at the recent Audit Committee. Any questions or comments from colleagues? Teresa, please.
Just really, Vince, to thank the Audit Committee, because they do hold a mirror up to the work of the council in a very vigorous and honest way. And I think, as you've said, every penny counts for Medway. So being able to have a mechanism which independently tells us that the management of our finances and the Treasury is correct and above board is really important. And I don't think we spend enough time thanking those on the Audit Committee. I also want to record my thanks to officers, because Treasury management is a particularly skilled and complex area of work, but they do their very best to make sure that we're fully across the changes and the way that things are moving, and of course the relationship between Treasury management, inflation itself, and the wider economy. So I think this is a really good piece of work that gives the public assurance that our finances are being managed properly, that probity is appropriately in place, and scrutiny of that probity is underway as well.
Thank you very much, Teresa, and I welcome those thanks to both officers and members of the Audit Committee. If there's nothing else, happy to move the recommendations to note that. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Let's then move on to item 10. Again, there's a supplementary agenda item, feedback from the colleagues on the Audit Committee. We'll be recommending, of course, this to full council, like other reports tonight, and to approve the Treasury management practices as set out. Again, as you would imagine, there's not dramatic changes in this from previous years. From my perspective, I think it's worth recognising some of the positives we've seen in the economy, and certainly, you know, a number of interest rate cuts is to be welcomed. We could do with the Public Works Loan Board taking a similar approach as we've talked about here previously as well. I would draw colleagues' attention to page 209. There is something specific, 209 of the strategy, not of the Cabinet report, because that was 3 items ago. This is around specifically the Kent County Council LGR debt. So again, if residents or colleagues have got a specific interest in that, that is there. Certainly, as Teresa, you mentioned actually, one of the things, when people say to me, there must be something that the previous administration did that you like. The answer I always give is bringing the Treasury management team fully back in-house. I supported it at the time. It was one of the decisions that the previous portfolio holder for finance made that was correct. And we can see that, you know, process there as well. I guess the only other thing for wider reference, there is a specific challenge. There has been a specific challenge across not just local government, but wider public sector around the issue of auditing. We are getting to a point of that now being in a better place than it was. That's not unique to Medway. That's not unique actually to councils across Kent. That is the wider industry issue, but I think actually putting some of those timelines and safeguards in place are helpful. As always, happy to take any questions from colleagues on this. If not, we will move that to the vote. I say we obviously will be taking that formally to full council later in the month. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Let's then move on to the next item. Thank you. Item 11, 547. And that's looking at round 3 of the Treasury management for revenue. First, I think we're looking at. If I've got my page. Hold on 1 second. Yeah. The numbers are very slightly out. There we go. 555 on my screen. Anyway, apologies for that. Monitoring round 3. This is one of those reports where life is moving much, much quicker than reports we see in front of us. So this is for noting. Obviously, I think in particular, I want to start this by saying a huge personal thank you to Phil Watson, in particular Dave Reynolds, who has been at, as far as I'm aware, every single, certainly departmental budget meeting. He has done an outstanding job, recognising he was stepping into some of that role, expanded role for the first time. So a huge personal thank you to him as well, and the rest of the finance team that have been working really closely with all 3 directorates to bring us together to where we have got to now. Obviously, some of this will play directly into the wider conversation we'll have with the budget setting later on, both tonight and later in the month. Great work has been done, bringing those levels down. Some colleagues may wish to talk about individual budget lines here. We have recognised, as I'll talk about in more detail later on, there will be a need for exceptional financial support, both for this year but also next year. And that was not something we were hoping to. We were hoping to get to a position where we wouldn't need to do that. But some of the challenges, both in this current financial year, but also the budget setting for next year, have meant that will be the case. And we await to see from central government. I was on a webinar with the chief executive this morning, and we are expecting to hear the outcome on exceptional financial support towards the end of February. I'm hopeful it will be by our budget meeting, but if it isn't, that's fine. All budgets are based on assumptions, and our working assumption is we will receive the request that we have. So you can see there through the 3 directorate charts in section 5, 6 and 7, some of the ongoing work that's been happening there, some positive movements made, but again, some particularly challenging areas in 1 or 2 parts of the council budget. I'll pause there and then see what colleagues wish to say and highlight in particular. I'll take Adam first, and then I'll go to Teresa.
Yes, thank you, Vince. And also, can I pay my thanks to the work of the finance officers with like Phil Watts and all the other staff that have been helping us with this year's quarterly reports, trying to adhere to the savings which have been set to us. I'm pleased to report that Children's Services has delivered a particularly strong performance, exceeding its full-year savings target by Q3, achieving 108% of target in a high-demand statutory service. Over £2.17 million of savings have been achieved through robust placement management, ensuring care plans remain appropriate and responsive to children's needs. Now, the expansion of in-house fostering capacity has helped keep children closer to home, whilst at the same time reducing reliance on costly independent agency placements. In addition, work to improve housing pathways for young people and care leavers has delivered both better outcomes and measurable savings, showing that financial discipline and safeguarding can go hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Teresa, please.
Thank you, Vince. And I think it's really important for me as well, in my division, Adult Social Care and Public Health, to acknowledge the work of officers in trying to keep on top of things, helped by a much more transparent way of managing the budget than they had seen in the past, in the context of extreme rising demand. Colleagues can see from the report that the way that things are increasing all of the time. Nearly 12,000 requests for new packages of care. 7% of those ending up in long-term residential care. And these things are not going to stop. The demographic analysis, our public health intelligence, tells us that they're going to grow. So things like Care for Medway, having a new care home, are part of the strategy of combating this demand and making us fit for the future. And in asking staff to be as efficient and make as many savings as they have, and we'll hear a bit later in the FIT plan how that's been achieved in these areas. I'm very clear, and I know that Vince, you are, and that colleagues on the Cabinet are, that we're not going to be halted in our determination to invest, to make things better, to change things, if we don't take the steps that we've set out very firmly. Nothing will ever move. We'll be in the same old doom loop that the previous administration were in, trying to make cuts, reducing public services, retreating from some of the statutory provisions and leaving staff in a position where they weren't able to meet their legal obligations. We've got a much more optimistic and professional approach to that, and even in the context of rising demand, we are improving our services, and there's huge commitment and innovation associated with that. So whilst I accept the gravity of this, I understand your disappointment, Vince, in wanting to avoid asking for exceptional financial support if it was possible, although at the beginning of our administration we knew that that was highly unlikely and prepared ourselves for that not to happen. It's not an admission of failure. In fact, on the contrary, it's a recognition that in order to go forward, we've got credible plans and we can rely on government support to deliver them. We've had a new settlement, the 3-year settlement. We've had lots of these grants that were complicated to administer rolled into one piece, which is welcome. But of course, that's meant that our officers have had to change the way that we record the spend and think about how the allocations will happen compared to how they did in the past. So this is a time of change. We are working with the government, not against it or around it, to deliver these priorities. And I'm optimistic that this budget will continue to help us do that, and that as we move forward with a 3-year settlement that's much more predictable, we'll find ourselves in a stronger position as time goes on.
Thank you very much, Teresa, and of course we'll talk more about that in a couple of items' time. I'll take Luella next and then Simon.
Thank you, Vince. So as we're all aware here, but just to reiterate, the primary financial pressure in housing is the provision of interim and temporary accommodation for households at risk of homelessness or who are already homeless. And reasons for this include end of tenancy, having to leave family and friends for whatever reason, and of course domestic abuse cases. So by the end of this financial year, so based on the numbers of approaches we've had so far, we're expecting to have had around 4,000 approaches for homeless and housing advice. So not all of those turn into homeless cases, admittedly. However, we do have a reality of almost 1,000 children living in temporary accommodation here in Medway. So that's the reality of the situation. And as an administration, we are taking steps through the various measures, and this is through our fantastic officers working alongside us to really try and think outside the box almost of all the different things we can do to try and prevent this. So this includes things like our commitment to increase our own council housing stock by at least 1%. This year we've actually beaten that 1% and got more than that. So that was good news in terms of trying to address it. We're taking preventative measures to help people remain in their homes. So early intervention really is important here. In fact, last month, 75 households were prevented from being made homeless. That's quite a significant number. And that just shows that this early preventative measures, the early intervention, the sooner we know that someone is about to be facing homelessness, we need to know, because it can make a huge difference. So it really works. Our own One Medway lettings, the more homes we can bring on board through that provision, that also helps relieve the pressure. And of course, our own temporary accommodation that we talk about, that more of those are coming forward and people are moving in, which also takes the pressure off the expensive nightly paid accommodations that is the alternative. And working alongside, so officers working alongside the Kent Housing Group to try and achieve standardised pricing actually across Kent and Medway. So that's another element of another outside the box sort of challenge that we're trying to address these problems. The increase of the domestic abuse provision, including a specialist housing options officer to support those vulnerable residents when needed. So we'll continue to operate our winter night shelter that we're running. That was fully funded from government grant plus public health and other places to run until the end of March, and that gives that additional support this year for those who have particular addiction and drugs and alcohol support that they might need. So that's an additional thing this year. So as we know, there's a long list there, but there's always more. We're trying to do more all the time, especially with restricted amount of money that we've got. So as we know, it's a huge task, but we're taking these steps to try and address these issues to reinforce that we're fully committed to the very best we can do for our residents long term.
Thank you very much indeed, Luella. Really powerful there, not least on the issue of domestic abuse, which continues to be one of the 3 highest reasons why children and families are having to use temporary accommodation. Simon, please.
Yeah, thanks very much, Vincent. Thanks to colleagues for comments in this area. I just wanted to, couple of issues. One is in relation to putting things in context. We've been at administration for close on 3 years now, after decades of austerity and decision-making based around do nothing and hope for the best. And I think turning that around is hard work and is proved to be difficult in some areas and simpler in other areas. And we will keep saying it. But already we are seeing a difference and how things are improving. The same is true for our government, which only had 18 months, and yet they're being criticised for not turning the economy around in 18 months and that kind of thing, which is crazy after decades of mismanagement. So we have to really look at this in context. We've got a journey. We're on a journey. It requires support and encouragement and partnership working between us and the government, and we're getting that, and it's starting to bite and it's starting to make a difference. So I think we really need to get the context of that right. And one area in particular, which I've harked on a few times, is in relation to planning. We've now got our draft local plan in the system. Hopefully will be adopted by the end of the year. In the meanwhile, we still have to live under, although it does take a certain amount of effect this year, under the old we have no plan regime. We have 4 public inquiries this year, possibly 5. They are really expensive, and they come about because we haven't had a local plan. And by having that in place next year, we are likely to have no public inquiries because we'll have a local plan in place. And the cost of each of those is huge. And that comes down to us and our community, and our taxpayers have to pay that bill. The lack of action from the previous authority. We've made the difference there, and hopefully next year we'll see the financial benefit of that along with the community benefit.
Thank you very much indeed, Simon. Thank you to all colleagues for this set of comments. That from my perspective, there is still work to be done in this financial year. You can see there, one of the things we're looking at is unlocking some very specified reserves for general use, and I think that's right and appropriate. It's good in the same way that we're looking at the property portfolio. It's important to look at those reserves to make sure that if they are ring fenced, is that ring fence still appropriate? You know, one of the ring fence there, for example, was around sell-up funding. You know, we're opening that up accordingly, so that's a positive thing to see. There are others as well, people can see that. So yes, I thank colleagues for their comments. There's more work to do, and rest assured, not only have those conversations that we've all been having, been focusing on next year's budget, I know that those conversations continue to be focused on the financial year we're in as well. We're working hard on that. Those conversations are continuing, and I thank both the Richard, your corporate management team, and the rest of the cabinet for those conversations. They are making a fundamental positive impact as we get towards the end of this financial year. So that work will continue as we go through. Is the recommendation agreed? Thank you. Let's move on to the similar conversation, but for the revenue budget. I'll move the recommendations as laid out on paragraph 1, and I draw members' attention actually primarily to paragraph 10. This is where the council have made changes to the capital scheme. There's been some additions, of course, most notably Care for Medway, and I wholeheartedly endorse your comments earlier on, Teresa, to say somehow this is a vanity project. Say that to the people who are wanting decent quality care and are waiting excessive amounts of time to get into the right sort of provision to leave hospital. That's not vanity, that's decent quality of living, and that's something this Labour administration will fight for every single day. Alongside that as well, you can see very helpfully some Section 106 funding being spent, for example, in Deangate Ridge on the peninsula, showing once again this administration is thinking about all 5 towns and the conurbation and the peninsula, every one of those 292,000 residents, and in particular this case, the 63,000 children of Medway. You're on our minds as well, so we're making sure those resources are put in there and in places like Maidstone Road and the Strand and Millennium Green. The HRA new build is in there as well. That's always to be welcomed, very positive, and we'll talk more about the HRA later on. And we did withdraw one capital scheme from Section 106 funding, and that budget was moved to fund the brilliant Chatham ambassadors. I was out speaking to them in the High Street today, really enjoying the work that they're doing. And I know firsthand from hearing from other residents they really value them. So they're a great addition, and I want to thank the team who have made that possible, both with the funding but the concept as well. So happy if colleagues wish to highlight anything else within the capital review of round 3. Teresa, please.
Yes, I mean, thank you, Vince, and thank you to officers who I think have been very creative with this in the widest sense of that word, making sure that every penny that comes in contributes to something that we want to achieve. And I'm particularly thrilled about the way we are developing new parks, one of our election pledges, of course, and something that is moving at pace now in Temple, improvements to Deangate, as you've said, some fantastic work going on at Jackson's, on the Esplanade. These are parks that mean a great deal, actually, both of those I've just mentioned to people who live in my ward, and that merit and deserve some improvements. And I was very pleased to attend the first meeting about the heritage and history of Jackson's Fields. We had actually the meeting on the park itself and thought about how those improvements could be made and how they would reflect what's happened in the past. We thought about the way Jackson's Fields connects with Victoria Gardens in your ward, Vince, and the fact that that is an extremely valuable walking route for people from across Rochester and Chatham into the town centre, giving them a healthy, pleasant walk. So there really is a lot going on, and some of the things that Llewellyn's already mentioned, part of the capital schemes that are happening, and a lot of redevelopment and things that we'll soon see coming out of the ground. So this is welcome news. This is making best use of the sources of funding, having a proper plan to think about how these things are going to what are the milestones, what are the things that we need to monitor to make sure that they happen, and all the time joining up that one Medway approach with the walking and cycling plan, with our plans to make safer streets and ways that people can feel that they are not inhibited when they walk around the towns, with our local transport plan, and with all of the things that Alex is doing in community safety to improve the life and experience of people, particularly in the nighttime economy. So I'm very optimistic about all of these things. Thank you for bringing it forward to us, and I look forward to seeing lots of these projects start to make a real difference in the coming year.
Thank you. Tracy, please.
Thank you. I wanted to comment on the £220,000 overspend on the school's condition programme. This is to carry out essential roofing works at Swingate Primary School, the cost of which has increased due to deterioration and additional glazing work. However, this represents better value and so responsible spending compared with completing the work in 2 phases over 2 years. And the overspend will be repaid from future condition survey grant. Unfortunately, the condition of school buildings has been in decline over a number of years because of the Conservative government's reduction in capital spending by 42% in real terms from 2010 to 2024. This government boosted funding by £300 million in 2024-25, with a further 15% increase in 25-26, which has enabled us to start tackling the backlog of maintenance and repairs needed to bring our schools up to a standard which our children deserve.
Thank you very much, Tracy. I can't see anybody else, so I agree with your comments entirely. And we should never forget, when we look at the financial reports, and yes, we are having to deal with some really difficult stuff, both on capital and revenue. Part of this is the legacy of 15 years of austerity. Both the Conservatives and, of course, the Lib Dems in those first 5 years. Let's never forget them as well. Absolutely draining income from every aspect of the lives of people here in Medway and indeed across the country. So no, thank you very much. And Teresa, as always, some clarity around the important stuff that's happening, both on that very granular level, but that Medway-wide approach as well. So thank you for that. Colleagues, you happy to agree the recommendations as laid out in the report?
Agreed.
Thank you. My plan, I'm conscious we've got quite a lot more to go, and we've already been going for nearly an hour and 3/4. My plan is to take the FIT plan, and then we'll have a quick 5-minute adjournment before we move to Llewellyn. I forgot Llewellyn's got one of these 12 reports, so we'll come back for the excellent Llewellyn Printer, but we will take the FIT plan Q3 update as well. So colleagues, I'll move the recommendations as laid out. You can see here, from my perspective as finance portfolio holder, but also as a very proud leader of this council, the incredible positive work that is happening, not just to balance the books, although of course that is always critically important, but actually to improve services. And I know from conversations with all of you around the table that when you're speaking with the hardworking officers, the conversation is not just about what can we do less of, it's about can we do it in a better way, a more effective and efficient way. Sometimes can we generate more income in a positive way? And all of those things are happening. And you can see that through here. In a very simple term, in 75% of the year, we've made 81% of the savings. We are not complacent. I can't say that loudly enough. There is more work to do, as I said with the previous items. But absolutely, I think the positive way this is now available for everybody to see in a clear and transparent way. And again, I want to thank Phil and his team for the great work, working with colleagues across the council in a one Medway approach to show those savings and efficiencies have been made, but also improvements in many different ways, actually, from perhaps looking at things which haven't been looked at in some cases for 20 years, because again, that ability to take those deep dives that doesn't happen overnight. So happy to throw it open to colleagues. I'll start with Llewellyn first.
Thank you, Vince. Yeah, I agree. We can't afford to be complacent. I've just said we've got almost 1,000 children in temporary accommodation, over 3,000 households on our housing waiting list. We can't afford to be complacent. So in the FIT plan, the housing portfolio has delivered over 500,000 of savings by Q3, primarily through better management of the housing waiting list, actually, and increased control over temporary accommodation, as I've highlighted earlier, some of the things we're doing. In addition, nearly 900,000 of cost avoidance has been achieved through temporary accommodation acquisition, use of the HRA, and one Medway letting scheme. This work is reducing pressure on the general fund while improving housing pathways for residents and demonstrating a strong link between operational reform and improving outcomes for all.
Thank you very much indeed, Llewellyn. I'll take Teresa next.
Yeah, thank you, Vince. And I think one of the things that this report does is demonstrate how important it was to put the FIT plan in place and do that quickly at the beginning of our administration. And I am grateful for the way, as I've said many times before, but it merits repeating, that staff at all levels have taken up the challenge of being more involved in financial improvement and transformation than they were given the opportunity to be before. We've recognised their professionalism. We've recognised what people can bring to the table in terms of ideas, and the FIT plan is characterised by that. So in adult social care, look, we've delivered £2.23 million worth of savings by Q3, alongside a very important additional £2.93 million of cost avoidance. Llewellyn, you've just spoken about that. And the thing about cost avoidance is that it means that ways of working has changed that will stay in place and continue to achieve efficiencies. You're not just avoiding costs as a one-off thing, but it's about the way that people have got a grip on current spend and future demand and found different ways of approaching things. So in the case of adult social care, that's been achieved through more targeted care reviews, ensuring residents get the right level of support in the least restrictive way, giving them freedom and independence, improving outcomes while safeguarding value for money all the time, more detailed reviews of NHS continuing healthcare packages, because We have seen more complex people come to us who are no longer being given NHS continuing care. And that means that we have to make sure that we're only funding Care Act eligible needs so that we strengthen the fairness of sharing costs for those packages and the financial control. And very importantly in public health, although we haven't got formal savings targets, the priority actions about preventing people feeling ill are themselves making savings. So we've got, I think now, 8 and more coming on stream falls prevention classes, very well attended across the whole of the borough. And not people not just turning up and taking part, but actually getting an assessment, getting individual help and support, as well as making friends and reducing social isolation and feeling more confident about walking around. There's one in my ward every Friday, and it's a real joy to see how people are making the best of that programme. A very important legacy from our sadly missed but always remembered Director of Public Health, James Williams, for whom falls prevention was a huge priority. And I'm very pleased that our director now, Dr. Whiting, and everybody else have carried on that mantle and made it real. Continuing to roll out all of the smoking cessation help, with a new AI tool now, so that people who perhaps don't want to work face-to-face have got a different way of doing that, and a targeted flu vaccination outreach. And I've been very pleased, actually, in my ward to work with Carson's Pharmacies, who've had a mobile vehicle going out to populations who haven't had their vaccinations, funded by the ICB, and making sure that they actually get them in a trusted place. So, you know, we can demonstrate a preventative, partnership-based approach that supports long-term health and care in the context of rising demand. And if I may, Vince, in Zoe's absence, she wanted me to remind Cabinet that actually the business management portfolio underpins the Council's overall recovery, and finance and business improvement have delivered 97% of their 14.9 million savings target by Q3, increasing council tax income, making sure that we get what we need from business rates, strengthening the council's financial position despite ongoing national funding pressures, and that the legal and governance part has got all their key actions for savings on track, including great progress that Simon has also been involved in on the Norse joint venture review and the development of corporate governance assurance statements in line with what SIPFA want us to do. So we've got improved accountability, more confident decision-making, and savings as well from Zoe's portfolio, which is really, you know, important to recognise as part of the FIP plan.
Thank you very much indeed, Teresa. I'll take Tracy next, and then Nina.
Thank you very much. Education services have made a concerted effort to achieve our savings target in a responsible way. We've delivered 95% of our savings targeted by Q3, but we were determined that this should not be achieved through reductions in services. Instead, we've brought in smarter operational changes. A comprehensive school transport review supported by new route planning software has delivered £1.06 million of savings while improving efficiency and maintaining the entitlement of children and young people. Officers are also embracing responsible innovation through AI pilots to support EHCP production, with data protection impact assessments completed before implementation. And this shows a balanced approach that combines cost control with service improvement and future-proofing for sustained savings going forward.
Thank you very much. Nina, please.
Thank you, Vince, and of course to the senior officers, Phil and Paul, for this report. Yes, as a cabinet, we do recognise the immense financial pressure that the council is under, but we can see from the report the great amount of efforts that every department is making within this council to maintain service delivery whilst applying fiscal prudence and discipline, whilst remaining aspirational for Medway and our communities. Within culture and leisure, Additional income of 208,500 has been achieved by the third quarter, whilst providing wide-ranging services and events throughout the year across all parts of Medway, really strengthening our heritage, culture, arts, sports, and leisure offers, contributing to local economy, community spirit, as well as pride in place. We do feel that the targets that have been set will be met. Through our determination, we are maximizing our national recognition as priority place for culture and heritage and an outstanding area for sports and leisure. Through being proactive and effective partnership working, including with national organizations, we continue to spotlight Medway's offers, achievements, potential, and bringing in year-on-year additional external funding for culture, heritage, sports, and leisure in Medway, whilst also being very clear about why we are investing in all our sports centres and offering our culture and heritage initiatives. Our sports and leisure services continue to perform strongly, supporting both financial sustainability and wider health and well-being outcomes for our communities, and I'm proud of that. My portfolio demonstrates that we have been very diligent in how we utilize available funds, contribute to the Council's financial sustainability plan, whilst maintaining pride in place, as well as improving access, inclusion, and contributing to community spirit, well-being, and quality of life. As with other Cabinet colleagues who will be thanking their heads of service, senior officers, and staff members, I would like to really take this opportunity to thank the heads of service as well as senior officers and every individual staff members in my portfolio, culture, heritage, sports, and leisure, for their leadership, probity, due diligence, and of course, all the hard work and dedication throughout the year for delivering the outstanding services that makes all of us very proud to be Medway. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Nina. Can I thank all Cabinet colleagues for their feedback and responses? It's really important. As Teresa said, we knew when we inherited this council, given the opportunity to serve by the people of Medway, the finances were not in a good place. We knew that. We brought SIPFA in to confirm that. And actually, as a result of that, what we see now is this regular quarterly update. And of course, in other councils, they may choose to do this work behind the scenes, privately, on blue papers, as they would be here in Medway. But I've been really clear, we will be open and transparent throughout. So I'm really incredibly proud of that, including now in the dashboards, which are directly within this report, so people can see as clearly as possible the great work that is happening. And again, I want to thank colleagues for sharing those examples. And I know there could be many more as well, rest assured. As I said right at the start, we are not complacent. We know there is more work to do both this year for Q4, which we're currently in, but also for the next financial year. And we'll talk more about that when we get to item 15. So I'm grateful for colleagues for their recognition of the work that's ongoing and happy to move the recommendations. They agreed? Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute adjournment, so we'll come back just before 9 o'clock. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for that. A long agenda, so important to have a quick stretch of legs before we move on to the next item, which again is forward-looking to next year's housing revenue account, capital and revenue budget. And Luella, over to you.
Thank you, Vince. So this is the housing revenue account, capital revenue budget, as you just said. So thanks to Phil Watts and Bex Wilcox, along with the senior housing officers listed there on the report. It's a team effort. It takes a lot of work, and it is compiled in conjunction with Savills. So it's a legislative requirement to have for all HRAs to have a valid and balanced business plan. And this plan is reviewed by Savills, as I've said, in conjunction with the Chief Housing Officer, HRA accountants, the tenants panel, also included on that, and myself. And this has been via workshops that we've all taken part in with Savills, and the plan was also discussed at our HRA governance group to ensure that our properties and assets continue to be maintained safe and efficient, whilst we ensure good quality housing management and services for the better outcomes for our tenants. So this report presents the HRA capital and reserve budgets and provides details of the proposed rent and service charge levels for 2026-27. And it's important to note that the service continues to monitor and provide support to those tenants in low incomes and people who might be experiencing financial difficulties. So comments are included in the report from the Regen, Culture and Environment Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and it should be noted that they supported this report. So Cabinet is asked to recommend to full council a proposed social rent increase of 4.8%, which represents CPI of 3.8% plus 1% for the social rent stock. All new tenancies issued during 26-27 will to be set at formula rent or a rent cap for social rent dwellings, whichever is the lower. So all of the recommendations are laid out in the report. There's a long list, so I won't read them out to you, but I just commend it to you for discussion and approval.
Thank you very much, Luella. Any colleague, any comments on that? Simon, please.
Yep, thank you very much, and thank you very much for the report to yourself, Luella, and the officers. I just wanted to make a comment. I think I've said it before about the HRA board that we have in there, which I'm a member of, and the standard of information and discussion and sort of the way things are presented to us there is incredibly high, and it really is almost like a benchmark. This is how it should be done, and it's really nice having the residents present as well from that point of view. So I just wanted to talk about the quality of the work that's produced on a sort of on such a regular basis by the team. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simon. Great to hear that feedback. Any other colleague? If not, Luella, before I come back to you, a couple of things. We're really proud as a council that we have an HRA account, that we have council housing stock, and at a time when local government reorganisation is happening, not only do we need to think about our residents, but of course, many of those residents are our tenants as well. And I know you as portfolio holder, certainly our head of housing, and indeed the staff that are working alongside both of you, are cognizant of that. So rest assured, up to and including the 31st of March 2028, we'll continue to give that very best service, and we will ensure, whatever the format of the new council, it's likely to be a council coming together of a real mix of some council organisations which have no HRA currently, some which have full HRA. Of course, ours is made up of 2 former councils. So I want to raise that here because that's important for those tenants to hear. And I know that you value the great relationship and conversation, sometimes quite robust conversations with our tenant panel. That's the right way for it to be. We want them to hold us to account, but support the principle of having an HRA and the housing that goes with it. The other thing I'd say is I'll be supporting these recommendations for full council. Want to highlight in particular item G on there, which is around the fact, of course, that we will always be looking in year to bring forward wherever possible, either new properties being built or acquisitions were appropriate as well. And I know there's been some buyback of old council stock, which is to be really welcomed. We can have a theoretical debate around the right to buy or not, but actually ensuring that where we can to increase our housing stock to tackle that 3,000 on our housing waiting list and those 1,000 children who are going to sleep tonight in temporary accommodation is critically important, arguably the most important job we have as a council. So really welcome that. And I know this year we've used that power. I've got no doubt we'll use that power next year as well. Back to you, Luella.
Thank you, Vince. And yeah, thanks for actually reminding. I mentioned earlier in all the earlier reports where I was like listed out everything that we're doing to try and sort of help with our housing pressures. But the buyback purchase of some of the housing stock, I mean, as you said, it was the Conservative right to buy policy that depleted housing stock in the first place. So we are working our way back. 1% is the target, and we obviously want to increase on that year on year. So it's something that we're doing. And I agree, Simon, the quality of the information we receive at the HRA governance group is very good. And the knowledge by the officers on all operational matters, I mean, you know, because you're there, we're all scrutinising, asking questions, and they know details. They know the details, even some reasons why there might be items on the list, what that actual repair is in that actual property. They're that knowledgeable. So yeah, I can't fault them for the repairs team there, and they're led by Adam Spokes and obviously Bex Wilcox. So I just want to thank them all again, and the particular work that the tenants panel do, that is second to none. They do engage in the workshops. They're not just sitting there as observers, they take part and ask questions and give their valued input. So that is really greatly appreciated and valued by, I know, the whole housing service and us as an administration. So I have nothing more to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are colleagues happy to recommend to full council the recommendations laid out in the report?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Let's then move on to item 15. Colleagues will be pleased to know I won't be giving my full council speech tonight, so rest assured we won't need a second adjournment. I'll move the recommendations as laid out in the report. Worth saying a couple of things at the start of this. Firstly, once again, my thanks to Phil Watts, Dave Reynolds, and the whole finance team. They have worked very, very hard on this. Not that hasn't happened every other year, but I think in particular, I want to recognise their work alongside the corporate management team, heads of service, and cabinet members in a way which I think I've not seen, certainly since I've had the privilege of sitting in this chair. We had, as is well documented, a financial situation that we inherited, which has meant year on year challenges for us as a council, not unique to Medway. I didn't agree with everything that was in every Conservative budget, but I didn't disagree with everything either. And I recognise that councils of all political persuasions are having to use tools and techniques to deal with that 15 years of starving local government of resources. And that's where we find ourselves today. We have a draft budget set out in this Cabinet report. This is the Cabinet report in its current format. That will go to full council. I would say that we've had information literally in the last 36 hours, giving us some level of clarity. So I give notice now there will be a short appendix when officers have gone through that, but we won't want to delay the publication of the main council report. And it's important that we show that information when officers have gone through it. I want to, moving through the recommendations, obviously, as is well documented, we will be taking forward a recommendation of full council raising by 4.994%. Worth recognising we are a unitary authority, so where some county councils may talk about a figure, of course that is not the only figure for that household. They have the district and district or borough figure as well. So it's worth recognising that. So comparing a unitary authority to a district and borough, or indeed a county council, is not like for like. You need to add those two figures together. And I know people who will be interested in this will be doing so accordingly. I want to talk specifically tonight about the issue of pay, because again, this is one of our recommendations, and I want to thank the Employment Matters Committee. I've been very clear throughout my professional life as a trade union officer, as a civil servant, as an opposition member, as a backbench councillor, and now in the current role I'm lucky enough to hold, a very simple sentence: that a below inflation pay increase is a real terms pay cut. And we know that people across Medway are struggling. And we know that 80% of the people receiving this pay increase are Medway residents. So we know what we're now proposing as a result of the positive intervention. And again, I want to put on record my huge thanks to Employment Matters Committee for this work that they've done. Again, looking at the granular detail, that it is right and appropriate that we recommend to full council a 3.5% increase for all staff on MedPay terms and conditions. It's important to say that. Of course, that is less than we've seen in the previous 2 years, but actually the previous 2 years have been trying to catch up where we had under the Conservative administration year on year of pay freeze or real terms pay cut. That led to Medway Council staff under the Conservative administration having to use food banks. That should never happen, and we will do everything that we can as an administration to make sure that it doesn't. So I'm grateful to colleagues from the Employment Matters Committee. Fees and charges are laid out within the document, as has been well documented by our local media, and I thank them for their coverage, and it was good to have them there to have a technical briefing with us. I'm always grateful for officers giving that time, and indeed for media colleagues who are overworked themselves for having that time to be able to get the detail which sometimes isn't explicitly clear from our papers, an opportunity to look at this and report on that accordingly. One of the fees and charges that has been talked about is car parking, and we have listened directly to traders, to the public, particularly those who use our town centres, just to do one thing, to pop in and do that one thing. And that's why, and I thank Harinder in particular for your persistent approach in a positive way of saying, don't forget about those kind of short-term individuals who are popping in to our town centres. I'm really proud that we will be proposing to reduce that figure from £1.90 to £1. And let's be very clear, we'll be, it's not my rules, any vote at full council has to be a recorded vote. You can thank Eric Pickles for that. So the public will be able to see who votes for and who votes against £1 for parking for half an hour in our town centres. And it's important because we want our town centres to thrive. We've got other funding in here. We're bringing in funding for important projects and promotions to work alongside the Pride in Place funding that, again, we've received from a Labour government. Compare and contrast that to the Conservative government taking away £170 million from the residents of Medway. Never forget that. So look, colleagues, it's worth saying with all of those challenges, of course, we continue to seek for this third year, as Teresa rightfully mentioned in one of the reports earlier on. When we first wrote to government, actually, we said we anticipate that year 3 would be in the region of £10 million, and year 3 is in the region of £10 million. We reported in the previous quarter that huge figure. Because of the collective work of colleagues here, we've managed to get that down. We are by law required by the 11th of March to set a balanced budget. It is absolutely our intention to do that on the 25th of February. I would say, as I mentioned earlier on, that we were at a seminar, myself and the Chief Executive were at a seminar today with MHCLG, and they made it clear that their current working timetable is for EFS considerations to be done by the end of February. So it may well be, as I think it was in the first year, that we're here on the night itself. But even if we haven't, that doesn't stop us bringing forward the budget. So we will be having the budget meeting on the 25th of February. I won't say too much more at this point because I'll have a lot to say on the 25th of February, but very happy if colleagues want to make contributions at this stage. Any colleague? Teresa, please.
Yeah, thank you, Vince, and we'll look forward to your budget speech, as always, setting out your aspirations for Medway and your determination to bring in a balanced budget and make sure that we continue to improve services. I don't shrink from the fact that there's been some tough decisions in here. One of those in my division is the uplift for our partners who provide care, who are commissioned by us. They are suffering rising costs along with everyone else. We are not yet out the other side of the cost of living crisis, although the government and we in playing our part are doing as much as we can to reduce the impact on that and put money into people's pocket. Nevertheless, it's a reality for our partners who provide care, and their uplift, as the report shows, will be 3% this year, different to what they have asked us for, and different but more welcome than a zero uplift down Bluebell Hill, where there's no recognition, apparently, for what care providers are suffering, and a load of nonsense talked about £40 million in fake climate savings. So this budget has got proper recognition of the things that are happening. It's honest about the way that costs are rising, and it's determined and actually robust, I think, in mandating us to continue to make the savings and efficiencies that everybody has across the council has joined with us in making. So it's been a tough road, I think. There's no question about that. But our determination is clear. Our confidence in the ability to continue to invest in staff and resources and all of the services that we do. When you're spending £1.7 million a day, you have to be careful and accountable for the way that money is spent and make sure that it reaches those most in need and our whole community, so that life in Medway can continue to be rich and enjoyable for as many people as possible. So I'm confident that the budget will be well received. We've got some tidying up to do, as you said. We've got some news to be the recipients of, but in a timely way and with great help and support from officers, we've brought in something that will work for Medway and allow us to continue to make the improvements that we want to.
Thank you very much indeed, Teresa. Simon, please.
Yeah, thanks very much, Vincent. And I think I'm not repaying compliments, but I think there is an element here of not mentioning the responsibilities placed upon your own and Teresa's and Richard's shoulders in all this about how we deliver these things. And a huge thanks from all of us, I think, for the work that you've put in to get to us where we are. I mean, I've mentioned a number of times about partnership and how important that is and working together. But partnerships need leaders. And in order to get things through, we have to make tough decisions, and those often rest on the shoulders of those in charge. So a huge thanks from your point of view. Medway is a unique place on a national level. It's got so much going for it for the future, but also all the challenges we have. We know there are areas of poverty and deprivation. We know our population is going up. 292,000, I think, is the number now, and it's going to go up even more over the coming years. And how you then continue to deliver all those services at the costs that you've outlined just now, Teresa, is a massive challenge. All that waste has to be collected, all that care for children, all that care for education, all the delivery of our cultural work that we do, and all that side of thing. All of that costs pounds per day, and organising that and planning that from a financial perspective is a huge challenge. So a huge thanks to you and the teams that have put that together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tracy, please.
Thank you very much. Across the council, and certainly in the education department, our key considerations when we were considering this budget was to continue to deliver high quality services to our children and young people in Medway while maintaining financial responsibility. The proposed increase in the budget for education services is primarily driven by the growth in pupil numbers and the increasing demand for EHCPs. Now, we take our statutory responsibilities very seriously, and so this includes investment needed to ensure we meet our statutory duties relating to SEND assessment timeframes. Now, let's not forget that in 2023, only 4% of educational health care needs assessments were being completed within the statutory timeframe, whereas now we are above the national average, despite increasing demand. There's also investment to ensure that we meet our new statutory duties, which will be arising from the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill. I've already highlighted earlier this evening the operational changes and use of technology to reduce costs, including savings in school transport and use of AI to reduce costs and improve efficiency. And I'd also like to highlight that the projections include investment in the information, advice and guidance and post-16 services. And this investment shows our commitment to helping the rising numbers of young people who are not in education, employment or training, to make sure that they can find the right placement, the right course, training opportunity or employment opportunity, to make sure that they have a brighter future ahead of them. So the education budget, there will be lots going on. It's been put together to make sure that we will provide those high quality services and that we will support our children and young people across Medway.
Thank you very much indeed, Tracy. I can't see any other colleague apart from Alex Patterson, who's put his hand up right now. Alex, over to you.
Thanks, Vince. I just want to pick up on some of the points around, again, why the bigger picture, why we do this, why we seek to find a balanced budget, and why in doing so we have so many plates to spin, so many criteria to consider. And I think, you know, to quote Charles Dickens, as often happens in this place, the famous passage in David Copperfield where Mr. Micawber develops what has become known as the Micawber principle of annual income £20, annual expenditure 19, 19 and 6, result happiness. Annual income £20, annual expenditure £20, ought and 6, result misery. Now, it's a lot more complicated than that, as perhaps even Charles Dickens would recognise if he had to assist with setting a council budget. And so I think that it's easy to be reductive about these things and to talk in terms of, as often politicians on the right try and reduce this down to a household budget or a credit card. Well, look, you know, if they want to play that game, let's look at it that way for a moment and say, you know, insofar as we have expenditure that exceeds our income, we've done what any responsible household would do. We have metaphorically cancelled the Netflix. We've switched to own brand cornflakes. We've done all of those easy things, all the things that Doge or Dolge or Dodge or whatever they call themselves this week might talk about in terms of waste. You know, these things, not only have we done them, we've done them year in, year out. We've done them year on year since rightly bringing SIPFA in to have a look at the mess that we were left. And, you know, you do all of those things and you still at the end of the day can't get away from the fact that all of the things within our control we've either cut the budget of or invested in the future of to save further down the line. All prudent stuff that I'm sure Mr. Micawber would thoroughly approve of. But what Mr. Micawber didn't account for in his £20 annual income is every day before we start in Medway, we've already spent £1.3 million on statutory services we can't get away from. And I think it's really important to think about the scale of that in terms of the other things we spend on. So, for example, the budget we have for highways repairs, the capital budget for highways repairs at my disposal, when people rightly want roads which are in better condition despite the 20 years of decline under the previous administration that we're trying to put right. that budget of a little over £5 million would pay for those statutory services for 3 days. 3 days. So what that tells you is not only are those unavoidable costs really high, but the money that's left over, no matter what our best efforts might be, no matter what increases to council tax there might have to be, we're still left with very small pots of cash with which to make those adjustments and to deliver those services. And I think that, you know, back to that household budget analogy, something that falls in my gift is the ability to adjust fees and charges, which I suppose Mr McCobber would see as working overtime. That's what we can do as a council. Once we've done everything we can on the balance sheet to reduce all those other things, we have to look at what more we can do. It's what any responsible household would do. We look to see how we can increase our income. Now, there are simple ways, blunt instruments that almost every council has to use because of the way we're funded, those essentially baked in increases to council tax below the referendum triggering rate. And then beyond that, I really look at this as, you know, my duty on behalf of Medway taxpayers. When we have assets that might be things like car parks, which are used admittedly by Medway residents, but also by visitors to this area. We've talked about the tourism value of this area, the incredible events that are put on throughout the year that bring in hundreds of thousands of people to our area into car parks that are full. So it would be remiss of me not to look at how we, for the benefit of Medway taxpayers, because that's who owns the car parks. It's not me. I'm not putting any charges up to line my pockets. I'm doing it so that we don't have to cut any more from the bone of what's already been cut on those services that nobody would choose to receive if they absolutely didn't have to. Ultimately, that is something that we have to live with. You know, it says at 21.8, charges for services should try to achieve a fair balance between the interests of users of council services and council taxpayers. For everyone in this room, we are both of those people. For all our residents, that's pretty much the case as well. But within that envelope, we have to make prudent decisions that make those adjustments to allow us to continue to do the really important things that we have to do. And I'm really pleased that it's been picked up that we've been able to bring in that special 30-minute rate on parking, because while you're making those difficult decisions on which things have to increase, it becomes very difficult to deliver the things that I know will make a huge difference to traders, but which actually ultimately, potentially, result in not delivering enough from council assets on behalf of council taxpayers that we should be getting. So we've been able to balance that in such a way as I think delivers a really good outcome. You know, the usual, the internet cranks that go on about 15-minute cities and as some sort of terrible thing. Well, what I would say to them is take half an hour. Don't take 15 minutes. How about a half an hour city, somewhere that you can come and pop to the shops and do whatever you need to do, support our independent traders. That's a really positive thing that can come out of this budget, because the decisions we make in this budget drive economic activity in this area. You know, last year we had ridiculous economic illiteracy from the Conservative group who wanted to sack 38 random council employees and you know, not deliver a proper pay rise for our staff. And the fundamental point is, when you give Medway staff, 80% of whom live in Medway, that pay rise, it might speak to what they would do with the cash, whether they would squirrel it away in some investment fund or some offshore activity. I don't know. It's certainly not what I've got spare cash to do. But I know what most Medway Council employees would do. Most people on any average income, what most households would do is they spend it, and they spend it locally, and that drives economic activity in our area. So we can do those things, and that's not money that's thrown away. That's money that's invested in our community. When we give that pay rise to staff that matches inflation, it means that they can continue to visit the independent shops and pay half an hour parking charges for the privilege and spend more in the shop and go for a drink and visit a restaurant and do all of those things. The idea that these things all happen in isolation, you know, if we want to play that reductive game about household budgets, I think that what we've done enables many households within Medway to live a better life, both now and in the future. That's what this is about. It's about us trying to make the best of a very difficult inheritance. The earth was salted before we arrived in administration, utterly salted, destroyed. They knew they weren't going to win that election, and they absolutely ran reserves down to, you know, extraordinary levels. They borrowed from the future to gamble on today. That's not what we're doing. We're building out of that wreckage. And in a couple of weeks' time, I've no doubt that they will troop up one after another and pretend that we were not left that disgraceful inheritance. You know, we've got people who now represent supposedly other parties who were part of that administration. Let nobody think for a moment that's anyone that should be anywhere near the budget of Medway Council. They damaged it the last time. Don't ever let them do it again, and don't let them think, don't for a moment believe them in thinking they are anyone different now.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex. A very helpful overview of exactly the reason why I really don't like it when people refer to £650 million of budget as the same as when you get your gas and electric bill. It's not the same, but your analogy is very helpful and will be loved both by those who are looking in and by those who love Charles Dickens. Thank you for that. I'm looking to see if there's any other colleagues who want to make contributions tonight. Of course, you will have an opportunity on the 25th of February as well. So let me say a few things in closing. Obviously, we will be recommending this budget to full council, as I said earlier on, not for political drama or theatre, but purely for practicalities. There will be a short appendix to come because information is still coming in. That will be coming after publication, but don't expect rabbits from hats, as perhaps we used to see disrespectfully, particularly to HR departments and trade unions. This has been a load of hard work for people around this table, and so I thank you personally for everything people have done. It has struck the right balance between income generation, efficiency savings, and making sure that we're getting the very best we can at the public services that the people of Medway deserve, recognising the challenge of £1.35 million every single day. And Alex, the point that you made very powerfully, there's a lot of talk around potholes at the moment. Actually, if we stopped spending money on potholes tomorrow, that would pay for just over 3 days, as you rightfully say, of the statutory services that we in this council have to deliver. Rest assured, we're not doing that for the avoidance of doubt, and I know teams are working hard because the environment's made it more challenging this winter, as we know. So we will move forward to full council. Worth recognising, finally, from my perspective, the fact that we have a multi-year settlement, the fact that, and you can see it in the document, in year 2 and year 3 of the multi-year settlement, we know where the finances will be. We know that actually the challenge to balance the budget, and there will still be tough choices this time next year, but we know we'll start from a stronger position. And I have absolute confidence. As we said when we started this process, this will be the third and final year of exceptional financial support that we will propose to full council on the 25th. I say we await to hear from central government on that, but I'm hopeful, and again I thank Phil in particular for his leadership in those conversations with MHCLG. Colleagues happy to support the recommendations to be proposed to full council.
Agreed.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next item which sits alongside that. We've said the money we're going to spend. Now let's talk about how we're going to spend it. So I'll move colleagues to page 775 and move the recommendations as laid out in the report. And again, I want to thank officers for the work that happens in this area. Worth saying from the start, and again, you can see in the subsequent appendix that actually we're not changing that many of the targets and statistics. It's a pretty steady as it goes process, and that's the right approach. You know, we're midway through our One Medway Council plan, so it is right and appropriate to reflect and review as we go forward to the next municipal year. But I'm really pleased of the work that's happened. It's a document which is easy to get hold of, easy to understand. That hasn't always been the case with previous council plans. And absolutely our quarterly monitoring here, but importantly, the regular conversations that sit alongside the conversations I know cabinet members have at their one-to-ones with members of the corporate management team under Richard's leadership. And you can see there very clearly in paragraph 4.3, our priorities, they continue and remain the same. You know, good quality social care and community services, benefiting from good education, quality jobs and a growing economy, enjoying green, clean, safe and connected communities, improving health and well-being for all, and living in good quality and affordable homes. We've talked about all of those things tonight already. Why do we do that? Because it's our priorities. And of course, they're not just our priorities, because this, for the first time, was a council plan that was consulted on with the wider public as well. Again, something I'm very proud of. So yeah, there are one or two minor changes. Sometimes that's because of legislative changes in national targets. Sometimes we're looking to stretch targets or recognise some of the specific challenges around what we have in place as well. So happy to take any questions or comments on that. Of course, I would recognise in the supplementary agenda the positive comments that have been made there as well. So thank you for that. Teresa.
Yeah, thank you, Vincent. Thank you to everybody who's involved in monitoring the plan and making sure that we stay on target. It's important to have an overarching view of the council's business that involves all sectors. But I wanted particularly to draw colleagues' attention to the fact that we've become a marmot place, and that what that is enabling us to do is hold a mirror up to some of these targets and plans and see exactly how we're going to achieve them in terms of improving health inequality. I'm very pleased to say that today we had our Marmot Advisory Board again with Sir Michael present and chairing the board for us. And absolutely, I can't speak for him, but I can speak about him, full of praise for the work of people in Medway, what we've done on Marmot. We're the first Marmot place to be putting together an asset map, bringing together in a very understandable and serious way all of the different activities and services that contribute to reducing health inequalities. We had some really good presentations actually by Scott Elliott, whose leadership and enthusiasm for this is absolutely second to none. When we had everybody from the voluntary sector together with MVA a couple of weeks ago, encouraging them, as I said at that meeting, to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And we'll soon be releasing the report that the Institute of Health Equity has done on the situation in Medway. And that has shown us that we know our place well, but it's shone a light very, very clearly on the areas of deprivation and the places where people are not getting a fair crack of the whip in terms of everything that we can offer. So one of the things that I hope being a Marmot place will do, and particularly due to this plan and all of our other plans, is allow us to look at the actions that we're taking through the lens of health inequality and make sure that when we are looking at those actions, they can make a contribution, to reducing health inequality. It really was an instructive and insightful meeting today, and very welcome actually to have an objective view of the work that is going on here, and all of it well received and praised as credible and effective by a group of people who can look across the country at what is happening to reduce health inequalities, and say that some of the things that we're doing here should be shared with other marmot places. So it's great to see the marmot place mentioned in the overall plan. I'm hoping that we can continue to use the marmot principles to test all of our policies, and think about the way that all of our activities in the council go towards reducing health inequality.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Any other colleague? No, thank you. And I would agree, blimey, we're on a journey with Marmot, and the fact that Sir Michael takes a personal interest just shows the positive approach, I think, not just Medway Council, but of course our leadership role, particularly through our fantastic public health team and your personal leadership on that, but actually that wider engagement with Medway. It's Medway's plan, and certainly again something else that we'll be working hard to ensure continues long after the 31st of March 2028. Colleagues, happy to support the recommendations as laid out in the report? Thank you. That takes us to item 17, the Risk Strategy Annual Review. I'll move the recommendations as laid out in paragraph 1. I want to raise colleagues' views to actually paragraph 6. I'll take you there first. There are some minor changes throughout, and again, you can see those within the document. I'm sorry for the local media. I'm afraid we are taking away the word catastrophic. Now, I have to say that that word wasn't in there under my leadership. We inherited that. So this will be the last time in a council report, I hope, that we see the word catastrophic. We're moving to critical. And actually, joking aside, it's a serious matter if we are referring to that, but actually critical is more of a sensible and more neutral, less emotive word. So I know several colleagues from both Cabinet and the corporate management team have raised views on use of that word within there. And again, we're updating some of the definitions and actually using numbers rather than Roman numerals. Again, just some small kind of formatting and updating of changes there. Importantly, it recognises the corporate risk management group. I think it's important to have that embedded within the document we have here. Again, they carry out a lot of work on a quarterly basis looking at this and looking at those kind of organisation-wide risk registers, something important. Again, these documents are critical. We just look over the last few years at the incidents we've had here in the council, here in the community, making sure the management of risk is dealt with from that corporate perspective is correct and appropriate. It is really important. So I'll pause there. And again, I want to thank particularly both Audit and Business Support ONS, who have again looked at these areas. And again, their comments are laid out in the supplementary agenda. Any colleague, any questions, catastrophic or otherwise? If not, happy to move the recommendations as laid out. Those agreed. Thank you. Let's then move to the next item, which is the Q3 review of performance monitoring and risk register on page 879. Bear with me one moment. The technology's gone on a go slow again. I'll move the recommendations as laid out. Again, I think if you look across the report that we've got in front of us here, this shows again good progress made in a number of areas. Of course, as we always do, we recognise where we're doing well. But as our Deputy Chief Executive always reminds me, we've got to be looking at the difficult stuff. Don't look at the greens, look at the reds. And that's right and appropriate. And I think if you look at the pie chart in paragraph 5.1, it shows, yes, there are some good areas of performance, but actually there are still some areas where progress is needing to be made. And again, colleagues may wish to comment on either end of those as well. On the strategic risk summary, there's only one change that's been made in this previous period of time, and that's the risk around meeting the needs of older people and working age adults has been decreased from B2 to B3. So that makes sense, and again, that's clear as to the reasons why in the report. This will go on a journey through scrutiny, as it always does, through scrutiny reports, four scrutiny committees for Q3, so we look forward to hearing anything they have to say. But I say, on the whole, it is business as usual, recognising that for a unitary authority of our size and scale, there will be areas that there is always work to be done on, and again, colleagues may wish to comment on any of those. I'll throw it open at that point. Any questions, comments? Teresa, please.
Well, I think, as you say, Vince, it's right to focus on the reds, not just celebrate the greens. But I just want to actually draw people's attention to an amber in the middle, which is the performance in adult social care in terms of completing reviews in a timely way. This has been an area of persistent need for improvement in the past. But with and of course, if those reviews aren't completed in a timely way, it holds up everything else in the system and means that we can't get care to people to keep them independent and well for as long as possible, as quickly as we would like to. But there's been some really fantastic work with some of the new heads of service and managers that we've appointed through the restructuring that has actually moved this offer and brought together early help and prevention, and it's already showing in actually a relatively short time a significant improvement. So I'm very optimistic that will soon go green, and I commend it to people because it's an example of how people have come newly employed to the council and been able to use documents like this to guide their work and put innovations in place. And so if this didn't exist, it would be much harder for somebody starting off to be able to get to grips with their new job and think about the improvements they can make and the ideas and innovations that they can bring. And so I'm really pleased to see that, because that's been a target that was red for a long time, moving up to amber and hopefully to green.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Good to hear that progress on again, quite often where there are those sticky challenges, making that progress, starting that movement is a good thing. Simon, please.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you talk again, just picking up Teresa's point about highlighting where we've got work to do. I just wanted to draw colleagues' attention to the improved opportunities for cycling and walking infrastructure, but most importantly around public transport and the delivery of our bus services. We've got this 9 million target for 2028. If we can achieve that increase in bus passengers, it's around about 7.8, 7.9 at the moment. There's still a lot of work to be done, but we are now working on it. A question earlier from one of the members of the public about the delivery of the real-time information for our bus stops. We've got our green bus stops with nice plants on their roofs and stuff like that, encouraging that feeling that the bus is a great place to travel around and utilise across Medway. However, the target's on amber at the moment. We need to be making better progress in that area. So that's something that we are now quite focused on. Certainly the officers and myself are meeting and discussing that in a lot of detail. So just wanted to highlight those sorts of areas where we have to really pick up the pace a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else on this one? I think some good progress being made, and thanks to colleagues who have highlighted again, showing that even where we're improving from where we've not been in a good place, but making progress, that we're not complacent and we keep moving forward. And that's important for residents. Ultimately, we want to get those good outcomes again in two of those important examples, but there are many others as well. Are colleagues happy to agree the recommendations as laid out in the paper? Agreed, thank you. Let's move to item 19, redevelopment of the Brook multi-storey car park. Simon, over to you.
So this is part of the regeneration work that's happening in the centre of Chatham, and it's really a procurement exercise for this report. The multi-storey car park is really not fit for purpose anymore, and it's costing us a lot of money. We have a bid in for Brownfield Land Release Fund of 1.5 million, which we're hopeful that we'll get in due course, and that's matched up with an additional 400k from ourselves from our capital receipts. At that stage, when we're in that position where we know we've got the funding in place, we'll be able to hand the project over basically to the Medway Development Company to take things forward for us. And this is would be done as part of our design code for the centre of Chatham, with the demolition of that site, provides space for development of 100 residential units in line with what we've got planned for the centre of Chatham in our local plan. So basically, we're seeking colleagues' approval to appoint MDC as the project manager and contractor for the works. And just to give a bit of a background, as I said before, this is an ageing structure which really needs now replacing. So there's a lot of work to be done on it, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to take it forward in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. The observant people there will see that this is actually from 3 cabinet members, so I'll take the next 2 accordingly. I'll take Luella and then Harinder.
Thank you. As Simon's just said, it is a site that's been declared surplus to requirements, and the timeline is tight in order to qualify for this funding. So it's sensible now to take action, as without development, it's expected to cost significantly more, as Simon just said, in 5 to 10 years' time, to keep this ageing property operational. We'd likely need to find alternative funding in the future to be able to keep on top of those works anyway. So it's the right thing to do right now. Even to demolish will take a significant amount of money. So as Harinder said earlier, this is in keeping with the Chatham Design Code, and this does support, it's a step towards our supporting our aims to meet our future housing needs, and will aid the regeneration of the High Street and wider regeneration, complement the wider regeneration at Chatham Waterfront and the works that we can see being undertaken at Mountbatten House. So it is the right thing to do.
Thank you very much. Harinder?
Thank you. I think this is an example of us boxing clever when it comes to regeneration. The important take home here, I really, really want the public to understand that it costs us money to keep the site as is, and so it's not sustainable. So trying to attract funding in the way that we're doing here, and hopefully we'll be successful, is absolutely the right move. I'd imagine that this would get some press attention, but understanding the project as is in terms of it costing us money and us being able to get the funding if successful, it should be a good news story. So I hope that everyone considered I know this is just a procurement paper, but for everyone just to look through the rationale behind it and support it and take the recommendations would be great. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other member on that? If not, I should probably say I'm a ward councillor for this area. It's worth noting that as well. But importantly, someone who has had to deal with, because people contacted me about Chatham Town Centre even before I was technically councillor for the area, the antisocial behaviour that's happened in that car park at points, the huge costs of keeping safe and secure, and that's a real challenge, a site of this nature. So I'm very supportive of this. I think for those who will say, well, you've got 28,500 homes to bring forward in your local plan, that's right. And therefore it's right that we're using, goes back to Alex's point, using our assets in the best way possible. And this asset in the best way possible is not best used as a car park, which frankly people don't like using. Numbers of people have said that to me directly. Now, again, staff, Norse, the Pentagon themselves, there's been a collaborative approach to make it as acceptable as possible. And look, it is safe, but actually, this is a much better use. And actually, if we can get that funding bid agreed, and we're hopeful, we've got a good track record as a Labour administration of winning bids like that. So we'll look forward to hearing from MHCLG and One Public Estate in due course. But from that perspective, this is important because, again, we need to be using every inch of land that we have in the best way possible. And in some cases, that will be about green spaces, as we've seen already. In some cases, that will be employment land. In some cases, that will be new and appropriate car parks, as we've seen in Rochester over the last decade. But in some cases, it's about saying to give more people the opportunity to have local shops in Chatham Town Centre. This approach is appropriate as well. So I'm very happy to support this. Simon, back to you.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much. Just no further comments, really. Just recommend it to colleagues for their approval.
Thank you very much. And obviously, this will come back in due course as we go through the procurement processes. So is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much indeed, colleagues. Let's move on to the next agenda item. And just to remind colleagues that this item and the next item have blue papers. No one's indicated they're intended to go into those, so I'm expecting that not to be the case. We'll move to the next item, therefore, which is South Thames Gateway Building Control Partnership Business Plan 26 to 29. Simon, over to you.
Thank you very much indeed. So colleagues are aware that we operate our building control across 4 local authorities in the area. That's ourselves, Swale, Gravesham and Canterbury. And it's been in place for a number of years, and the business plan is part of the arrangement we've got with them. We have a joint committee and we have a constitution to operate together in partnership, which has been working extremely well for the last few years. But the business plan, part of that constitution, requires us to update it every year. So this is the updated plan, which will now run from this year up to 2029 and takes us through the LGR process. So it's quite a fundamentally important plan from that point of view, but it is a sort of part of our agreed constitution with our neighbouring authorities. But also we're agreeing our contribution towards the process as well from the upcoming budget as well, which has been included in our budget calculations for this year. There's a number of issues to really highlight within this business plan. There are enormous pressures for growth in our area, so a number of housing developments and stuff like that. Equally, we've got a lot of properties to maintain and manage, which require our building inspectors to get in there and make sure they're safe and fit for purpose in every single way. So there are 3 major pressures which we've identified as standing out in this. Firstly, is the shortage of registered building inspectors. This is a problem because of the increasing regulatory demands, the complexity of the work, a lot of retirements taking place, that kind of thing going on. But also the private sector pay is significantly higher than the public sector pay, and that always takes them out. Even though we have to deliver our statutory function in this area, it is a challenge for us to match those private sector pay deals. There's a lot more supervision required, greater influence on mentoring on-site and oversight of inspections. That's a resource need, and I mentioned the salary competition is a real problem. So in that respect, this plan has been put together as a growth plan, with additional inspectors being recruited year on year for the period of the plan in order to make sure that we can compete on the open market with the private sector, but also deliver our statutory services and requirements and thinking ahead to the LGR process. So it's a complex plan, but I'm asking colleagues to support it as we go forward. I'll stop there for the moment.
Thank you very much indeed. Luella?
Thank you, Simon. I just wanted to highlight that when I was reading it, that I'm really pleased to see that dealing with the issue of the shortage of registered building inspectors, they are starting to look to invest in developing and growing their own sort of talent. So I think that's really a really positive thing through training and qualification pathways. So I think it should be welcomed, and it is essential for the long run operation of the partnership.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I can't see anybody else. So before you wrap up, Simon, just two quick things from me. Firstly, to thank you, because of course it's been Medway in the chair this year, it circulates. So thank you for taking on that role. And then secondly, just to particularly refer back to paragraph 4.4 and 4.5, there is not a credible model for LGR which has all four of these current councils in the same council moving forward. So I'm really pleased to see there's a recognition of that. And obviously we'll know more in July, and I know that you and the team, working closely with, fantastic people like Janine, will be able to look at that. And I think there's a conversation to be had potentially. Let's say our model is successful. I think there's a strong conversation to be had around potentially all four of those councils opting into this, because I think it's the right approach to take. Having a public sector option on this has got to be right, but it comes with challenges. It's the principle and the practical, as you say, around the kind of draw away to the salaries of the private sector can be tempting. But I know, hearing directly, that people value and appreciate not just working for this organisation, but the collaborative approach between councils. So really pleased to see that that's already on the mind of colleagues there. Simon, back to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, and thank you, Luella, for those comments. I think that's right. There's a very positive attitude amongst the four authorities on this partnership, and in that respect, I think that kind of approach where we say to the new authorities as they come forward in LGR, actually, we've got a model here that really works well, delivers our statutory functions, and is one that's sort of sustainable in the long term as well. I think that's the kind of model that we're looking to create, or it has already been created, and we want to build on for the future. I just wanted to say one final thing in that respect, and that's as the chair of it going forward over the year, we're going to be handing it over to Swell in the new financial year. A huge thanks to Janine, who's been so supportive and very professional in her approach to how we deal with all the work that's involved with this. So, and to her team, just a massive thanks to her for the support that I've had personally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the recommendation agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. That moves us on to the last substantive item for tonight. Gateway 1 report on all age service for substance misuse. Teresa, over to you.
Thank you, Vincent, and thank you everybody who has put this important report together. You're being asked tonight to approve procurement of an all-age substance misuse service as per the option that's shown here at option 5 through a competitive process. There are some distinct differences in past years. First of all, we're looking now for an all-age substance misuse service so that we get that continuity from younger people into adulthood, and that we try to make sure that the service arrests particularly younger people getting into substance misuse at an earlier stage. So prevention is very much at the heart of this particular ask of the new provider. And we're not starting from zero, of course. There's already some fantastic work going on. I was very pleased on Friday with officers to visit the Open Road Breakfast Cafe in Chatham. That happens twice a week, and the cafe is open to anybody with substance misuse problems. And when I was there, I saw another brilliant example of the kind of collaborative working that I hope we'll be able to get through procurement of the new contract as well. We had nurses from hepatitis B sufferers. We had nurses who were working on TB, because I'm afraid there is a rise in TB, and it's particularly prevalent among homeless people and those who are vulnerable because of substance misuse. We had people there from our Rough Sleepers team helping with the breakfast, as well as the colleagues from Open Road, who of course themselves are commissioned by our existing provider. And there was a tremendous collective effort in helping the people there to either continue their recovery or get them to a place where they're confident enough to enter a recovery programme. And recovery is at the heart of the procurement. We're going for a 3-year contract with a further possible 2 years and 2 years again. And as in the last item, thinking ahead, those break clauses are there to accommodate LGR, so that we can bring into what I hope will be an enhanced and continually good service for this very vulnerable group of people. We can bring in whatever elements we need to from the new council as soon as possible. So I'm asking for the cabinet support to start the procurement. A lot of thought has gone into what we want this service to look like, with the change to an all-age service, which I think will be welcome. And I look forward to hearing through the procurement that we can get this new service of treatment and, importantly, recovery in place. We don't want to hold people in treatment and hold them in addiction. It's that move towards recovery that's so critical. And we're hoping that by having an all-age service, we'll be in a strong position to continue to do that.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Nina, please.
Thank you, Teresa, and of course, again, to Dr. Whiting and Barjoun for this report. I really welcome this because I have worked with vulnerable young people and some adults as well who have difficulties with alcohol and substance misuse. And there is evidence that sometimes when there's no seamless sort of transition process, some young people do fall through the safety net, and this will protect them from falling through the safety net. And I have seen how this report has come out of involving lots of discussions with all the key stakeholders, and does also provide scope for further review and service improvement on the basis of feedback as well. I do feel that service like this, especially in Medway, is very needed, very much needed, and there is ample evidence to support that as well. And I do hope that people who need this type of service will not only utilize it, but the service providers and the teams, these expert teams as well, will make sure that some plans are, rather than one size fits all sort of blanket approach, it is individualized, because depending on what other stress factors are going on for that person, some might be more sort of open to one specific type of approach, whereas some other might engage more with like group support work type of approach as well. So hopefully there's scope for all of that, and individualized support will be there. And I think, if we can make a difference in breaking through to the individuals who can utilize the support and make a positive difference in their recovery journey, then it's not making a positive difference in their lives, but in the lives of their family members as well. And of course, to our community as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Nina. I can't see anybody else. So before I go back to Teresa, I really, really welcome this. As many people know, I've been around for over 18 years. And part of the challenge in the past has been, as kind of picking up on Nina's point, sometimes if you've got a great officer at organisation A and a great organisation B officer working collaboratively around handover, transition, etc., multi-generational stuff as well, at points that's been brilliant, but that's through luck rather than anything else. And often organisations won't talk to each other in the way that we would want to. That's certainly been examples I've seen over the last 18 years. So I think moving to this single approach will actually rightfully support both service users, their wider family as well, because again, I think that's some of the conversation that can be had here. And we'll send a clear message to those who are in these circumstances. We want to support you as you go on your personal journeys, to a better place. Teresa, back to you.
Yeah, thank you for those helpful, insightful comments, Nina. You're absolutely right. One of the elements of recovery is to build in the will of those involved in helping the service, for the users, that they absolutely, everybody working with them wants them to recover. Nobody sets out to be an addict of anything. It's something that happened, and in some ways, there but for the grace go all of us in terms of our association, our social contacts, and those kinds of things. So having a service that works right across the age spectrum, I hope, will be able to enhance that intention that we want you to recover, we want you to get better, we don't want you to stay in this position where you can't realise your full potential. And yes, for Vince and for you, talking about the way that the families of people in addiction suffer as well is incredibly important. And I'm hoping that, you know, space can be created within the service to give them more attention than perhaps we do now. But, you know, when you go along something like the Breakfast Club and see people there who are prepared actually to share their stories and to support each other, it was very heartening, albeit that within the group of people I saw, as Vince, you're alluding to, were people who I've seen in the Medway towns in addiction for years. And so we don't want that to happen to a younger generation. We want to give them as much support as we possibly can at the earliest possible stage. So looking forward to the procurement. I'm confident that the break clauses will allow us to have a seamless transition to LGR, and actually grateful for everybody putting it together in the public health team for their cognizance and determination that the work they are doing now in business as usual also looks to the future for LGR, because it's not an easy thing to do, but actually there's enthusiasm across the council for doing that, and this is a really good example of where it's happening.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Is the recommendation agreed? Thank you very much. That closes tonight's meeting at just after 10 past 10. Have a good night, everybody.